3 days after I gave birth, my husband finally showed up, but he wasn't alone. He brought a woman I didn't recognize with him. I was shocked, but I managed to ask him, "Who is this woman?" He smiled and said, "She's my girlfriend, or better yet, my future wife." "What do you mean?" I asked, confused. "I'm tired of you," he replied. "What?" I couldn't believe it. "My name is Elizabeth, and I'm 25 years old. I work at a company. Recently, my boyfriend, John, proposed to me. We met in high school, started dating in our first year, and even broke up during our senior year. After we'd both finished college and grew up, we bumped into each other again at a reunion and started dating again. 3 years later, he proposed to me. I will love you, Elizabeth, for the rest of my life. Will you marry me?" he said during the proposal. I believed him and said yes. I was overjoyed with my new life as his wife. I loved being with him every day. We both worked, so we only saw each other at night during the weekdays, but it was enough. I was happy to be with him until morning, instead of going to separate homes each night. When we were in high school, neither of us could cook, but in college, we each lived on our own and learned how to cook. We started sharing household chores, making our life together balanced and comfortable. John's specialty was fried food, and he was really good at it. I'm not great at making fried food, so I was happy he could cook it for me. I, on the other hand, was good at making Japanese dishes like simmered vegetables. John always praised how delicious they were, just the right taste, not too strong or too bland. I thought we would continue to support each other and live happily together. Then, after a year of marriage, I found out I was pregnant. I was so happy that I immediately told him, "John, I'm pregnant." "Oh, really?" "Yes, I am." "Wow," he said, his mouth hanging open in surprise, like in a cartoon. "John. Oh my God, I'm going to be a father." "Well, your reaction is a little slow," I said, laughing. "You really surprised me. I'm so excited," he replied. "I'm excited too, but now we have to work hard for our baby." John was thrilled about the pregnancy. I knew I'd enjoy raising the baby with him. At first, he was very concerned about my health. "Elizabeth, take it easy, okay? If it's too hard, you can quit your job." "Thank you, but I'll try to work until my maternity leave," I said. "Okay, I'll take care of everything at home." "Thanks." With his help, I was able to rest well through the morning sickness. As I got closer to my due date, things started to change. My husband began coming home later and later. "Did you work late again today?" I asked when he got home. "Yes, I left some things for my coworkers to do. Now that you're in a stable period, I thought it was time to make up for taking time off from work," he replied. "I see, so, you stayed late even though you had overtime to do?" "Well, your health is the most important thing, but I neglected my work for 2 months. I don't want to be out of a job after the baby's born." "That makes sense. I'm a little nervous about being home alone, but if that's the case, I won't complain. Maybe I'll go back to my parents' house when I start maternity leave," I suggested. He seemed relieved. "That's good, then I can work overtime without worrying." I knew I'd miss seeing my husband, but I also felt relieved knowing I'd have support from my parents during maternity leave. So, once my maternity leave began, I moved back in with my parents. It felt so much easier to be in a familiar home without having to do the housework. Having my mom around made me feel secure. But there was one thing that started to bother me. My husband had been slow to reply to my messages lately. Before, no matter how busy he was, he always replied the same day. Even when I had morning sickness, he would always get back to me quickly. But now, his responses were taking a day or even two, and they felt short and distant. The other day, I sent him a message asking if he was still busy at work and reminded him not to overwork himself. His response was just, "Yeah." I started to worry since I didn't see him anymore, but I knew I shouldn't stress about it since I was pregnant. So, I decided not to dwell on it and tried to focus on staying positive, thinking about life after the baby was born. I bought lots of baby things. "Oh, you're buying too much," my mom joked. "No, we need everything to make sure the baby is safe and comfortable," I said. "You're so excited about your first grandchild," my dad added. "You're the one who keeps asking the shop assistants questions," I laughed. "Thank you, Mom and Dad," I said, feeling grateful for their support. Even though my husband wasn't replying much, I stayed focused and happy, waiting for the baby's arrival. The due date finally arrived. I sent a message to my husband, letting him know it was the day, and told him to be ready to come to the hospital when I contacted him. But he didn't even read the message. Maybe he's busy with work, I thought. My husband knew my due date was coming, so I wished he would be more aware of it. As my labor pains began, we went to the hospital. I was finally going to have the baby. I couldn't call my husband myself, so I asked my mom to leave him a voicemail about the delivery. But still, he didn't show up that night. He didn't return any of my calls. I went up to the delivery table without him. The birth was harder and longer than I expected. The baby's umbilical cord was wrapped around her neck, which made the delivery difficult. It took almost a full day after the contractions started for her to finally be born. But when I saw my baby girl and held her in my arms, all the pain and exhaustion disappeared. She was beautiful. "You did your best to come into the world, didn't you?" I whispered to her. I said goodbye to my baby for a moment, then lay down to rest after the long hours of labor. I woke up in my hospital bed to find my mom sitting by my side. "How are you feeling?" she asked. "I'm okay, I feel pretty good," I replied. "I'm glad to hear that. Mom, what's wrong? You don't look well." She sighed. "I haven't heard from John since you gave birth." "Yeah, that's true. What's going on with my husband? We just had a baby." I was furious. Why hadn't he come to the hospital? I'd sent him a message saying the baby was born, but hours later, he replied saying he could come in 2 days. Why can't he prioritize coming here? I muttered. Before the baby came, I'd tried not to let myself think negatively, but now that the baby was here, I couldn't hold back my frustration. Why can't he come now, when his own child is born? Shouldn't he be here? I was boiling with anger. Is his work that strict? I sent him a message, putting all my anger into it, but he only read it and didn't reply. What's going on? He was so happy when I told him I was pregnant, but now he seems so distant. My parents were also upset. My dad said he'd give John a lecture when he saw him. Finally, 3 days after the birth, John showed up, but he wasn't alone. He brought another woman with him. I was so shocked I couldn't even speak at first. "You look well," he said casually. "Then don't message me like you're being chased," I shot back. He'd come with another woman, and now I had to deal with his cold attitude. I was stunned but managed to ask, "Who is this woman?" John smiled and said, "She's my girlfriend, or better yet, my future wife." I couldn't believe it. "What?" The woman next to him laughed and tapped his shoulder, saying, "What do you mean future wife?" I'm embarrassed. "What is going on?" I asked. John shrugged. "You don't get it, do you? It means you and I are getting divorced." "What?" I was in shock. "Wait a minute, are you saying you were having an affair?" John replied, "Well, adultery doesn't sound great. It's more like I found someone else to love and we hit it off." The woman chimed in, "I'm just tired of you." John continued, "You know, men are attracted to women who take care of themselves." "Are you saying I wasn't taking care of myself?" I asked, hurt. "You got fat and bloated staying at home all the time," he said coldly. "I was lying in bed because I was pregnant and sick. It's normal to gain weight when you're pregnant. So you had an affair because of that?" I couldn't believe what he was saying. "I don't have romantic feelings for you anymore," he said, turning to the other woman. "I met someone better." They started flirting in front of me. "I've had enough," I muttered. "Okay, I'm done. Just get the divorce and leave already," he snapped. "I'll leave without you having to tell me," I said, trying to hold it together. And with that, John and the other woman walked out of the room, without even looking at our baby. He didn't even ask about the baby's gender. It was clear he didn't care anymore. I was left there, mentally drained, feeling like I was going to have to raise our child alone. As I sat there, feeling down, the door to my room opened. "Huh?" I jumped, startled. It was John's mother, my mother-in-law, who walked in. "What are you doing here?" I asked. "Elizabeth, I'm so sorry for my stupid son," she said, her voice full of regret. Apparently, she had seen John and his new lover in the parking lot. After questioning him, he told her exactly what he had told me. She said she sent the woman home and then dragged John to the hospital to face me. "How could you do this? You had an affair with another woman while your pregnant wife was waiting for you, and now you want a divorce?" My mother-in-law's voice was full of disbelief and anger. "You have no idea how many times your father would have hit you if he were still here." I felt my heart sink, knowing what she was referring to. My father-in-law had passed away a few years ago. I didn't have a choice. She approached me, and I fell in love with her, my husband said, avoiding looking at me. How could I have married a man like this? I whispered, my voice trembling with hurt. My mother-in-law, still angry, looked at me. Elizabeth, do you still want to stay married to John? I didn't hesitate. No, I want a divorce now. She nodded, her expression softening a little. Well, that's fine. John, hearing that I wanted a divorce, seemed almost relieved. He didn't seem to care at all. But my mother-in-law wasn't done. Then you're going to pay alimony for your affair and child support. What? John looked shocked, as if he hadn't expected this. Of course, she continued, you committed adultery. You need to take responsibility for that, and if you divorce Elizabeth, I'll stop sending you money. John was baffled. What do you mean, sending money? My mother-in-law shot him a look of disbelief. Elizabeth didn't know about this? His income is so low that he asked me to send him a few $1,000s every month to support his life with you. I was stunned. I had no idea. John had a low salary, but I had always made more than him. I was the one covering for his lack of income, and now I found out that he'd been using the money his mother sent him to fund his affair. My mother-in-law's anger flared. I'm going to make you pay me back every penny I've given you. I'll cut all ties with you. Don't ever come back to my house again. John tried to protest, but she wasn't having it. Elizabeth, I'm so sorry for this mess. I'll help you find a good divorce attorney. You can take as much as you want from this guy. Thank you, I said, feeling a sense of relief that I wasn't facing this alone. My mother-in-law left with John, and I knew I had to get everything I was owed. I demanded divorce alimony and child support from John, and of course, I also went after his adulterous partner. John's life fell apart after that. He had deep debts, and without his mother's support or the money from his affair, he was left alone and broke. He spent his days paying off alimony and child support, living in poverty, with no one to turn to. As for me, I moved forward. I returned to work as a single mother, doing my best to raise my child and give her a good life. I stayed in touch with my mother-in-law, who was now a part of my life and my daughter's life. My ex-husband might have been in, but I could thank him for one thing: he had introduced me to my amazing mother-in-law. Having an affair while pregnant is unforgivable. I wish there was a harsher punishment for what he did, but in the end, I was glad the woman saw through him and walked away from that kind of scum. Now, I focus on my daughter and look forward to a happier life with her. I hope we can live peacefully and joyfully from here on out.
The sound of splintering wood made my heart stop. I rushed outside to find my grandmother's prized rosebush crushed beneath an enormous bouncy castle, its decades-old branches scattered like broken promises across the lawn. My brother Ramon stood there with a beer in his hand, watching his kids bounce away, while my sister-in-law Cynthia lounged on my grandmother's antique patio furniture, scrolling through her phone. "Oh, hey, Belle," Ramon called out casually. "The kids needed something fun for the weekend. Hope you don't mind." I'm Isabel, and 3 months ago, I inherited this cottage from my grandmother. The same grandmother who spent 30 years cultivating that rose garden, who taught me the names of every bloom, who trusted me to preserve her legacy. Now, I was watching it be destroyed, one careless act at a time. "Ramon, we talked about this," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. The garden was off limits. Cynthia looked up from her phone. "It's just some old flowers. This place needs modernizing anyway. You should be thankful we're helping update it." I bit my tongue, remembering the conversation that led us here. Ramon had shown up at my door 6 weeks ago, eyes red from crying. Cynthia and their 2 kids waiting in the car. They'd lost their house, something about bad investments and missed payments. He'd promised it would just be for a few months while they got back on their feet. "We're family," he'd said. "What else is family for?" Now I watched as Milena, my 10-year-old niece, jumped from the castle onto what remained of the rose bush. Each bounce felt like a punch to my gut. "Dinner's ready," Cynthia called out. "Belle, you're welcome to join us. We're using that fancy dining room set, though honestly it's so dated. We should really think about replacing it." The dining room set. Grandmother's mahogany table that had hosted 50 years of family gatherings. I walked inside, past the walls they'd already started repainting without asking. past the boxes of grandmother's photos they'd packed up to make space, and into my car. My phone buzzed with a text from Mum. "Don't be difficult about the house, sweetie. Your brother needs this. Family comes first. Family comes first." How many times had I heard that phrase used to excuse Ramon's behaviour? When he borrowed my college fund, when he crashed my first car, when he showed up drunk at grandmother's funeral. I drove to the small coffee shop where I used to meet grandmother every Sunday. As I sat in our usual booth, my phone lit up with pictures from Cynthia's social media. She was posting photos of their new place, talking about renovation plans as if the house was already theirs. "Excuse me," a familiar voice said. "Is this seat taken?" I looked up to see Bonnie, my grandmother's next-door neighbour for 30 years, holding 2 cups of coffee. "I saw what they did to Margaret's roses," she said, sliding into the booth. "Your grandmother would be heartbroken." "I know," I whispered, accepting the coffee. "But what can I do? They're family." Bonnie's eyes hardened. "Family doesn't destroy what you love, dear. And your grandmother didn't leave that house to them. She left it to you." My phone buzzed again. Ramon. "Hey, sis, we're thinking of converting that old sewing room into a game room. The kids need their space, you know? The sewing room, where grandmother taught me to stitch, where we spent countless hours talking about life while she worked on her quilts. Each one told a story, she'd said. Each stitch was intentional." I looked at Bonnie, who had watched this family drama unfold for decades. "What would grandmother do?" She smiled, but it wasn't a warm smile. It was knowing, almost fierce. Margaret wouldn't let anyone walk all over her legacy. She may have been quiet, but she was never weak. I took out my phone and opened my contacts, scrolling to a number I hadn't used since handling grandmother's will. Lionel Morrison, attorney at law. "Sometimes," Bonnie said, watching me, "the kindest thing you can do for family is show them there are consequences." As I pressed the call button, another text came through. Cynthia had posted a new photo. My grandmother's antique vase, now painted hot pink, with the caption, "Making this place our own." New beginnings. "Hello, Lionel," I said when he answered. "We need to talk. It's about the cottage." I could hear the bouncy castle's motor humming in the distance, still crushing what remained of grandmother's roses. But for the first time since Ramon moved in, I felt something other than helpless. Something was building inside me. Quiet, calculated, and unstoppable. Like grandmother always said, roses might be delicate, but their thorns mean business. "What in God's name happened here?" I whispered, staring at the black Sharpie scrawls defacing my grandmother's portrait. The elegant oil painting that had hung above the fireplace for decades now bore cartoon moustaches and devil horns. "Kids will be kids," Cynthia chirped from the kitchen. "Besides, that old painting was so dreary." I pulled out my phone and quietly snapped a photo, adding it to the growing album I'd labelled Evidence. 3 weeks had passed since my meeting with Lionel, and each day brought new destruction. The doorbell rang. It was Mom carrying a casserole dish. "Belle, honey, you look stressed," she said, pushing past me. "I brought dinner for everyone. Where are my grandkids?" "Probably upstairs," I said, drawing on more walls. Mum's face tightened. "Don't be dramatic. Ramon told me you've been difficult lately, making comments about how they're living here." A crash from upstairs interrupted us. 7-year-old Arthur came running down, clutching one of grandmother's porcelain music boxes. "Mum, look what I found!" Before anyone could move, he tripped. The music box shattered on the hardwood floor, its delicate ballerina splintering into pieces. "Oh, sweetie, are you hurt?" Cynthia rushed over, completely ignoring the broken heirloom. I knelt down and started gathering the pieces. That was grandmother's, from Vienna. "It's just stuff, Belle," Mum said, helping Arthur up. "What matters is he's not hurt. Remember when Ramon broke your science project before the fair? You got over that, didn't you? The memory hit hard. I was 12, had spent months building a working model of the solar system. Ramon had accidentally knocked it over the night before judging. Mum had said the same thing then. It's just stuff. I need some air, I said, stepping onto the back porch. I pulled out my phone and dialed Lionel. How's the documentation going? He asked. I've got photos of the damage, plus videos of them admitting to changes they've made without permission. Bonnie's been keeping a log of everything she sees too. Good. Keep building the file. And, Isabel, stay calm. The calmer you are, the more they'll show their true colours. As if on cue, Cynthia's voice carried through the open window. I'm thinking we should just get rid of all this old junk. Make room for our own things. I walked to the garden shed, the one place they hadn't invaded yet, and pulled out an old photo album. Inside was a picture from 20 years ago. Ramon standing over my broken science project, me in tears, Mum hugging him, while Dad stood in the background, silent as always. The back door slammed. There you are, Ramon appeared, swaying slightly. We need to talk about the master bedroom. What about it? Well, it's the biggest room, and with the kids growing... I stood up. That's my room, Ramon. We agreed. Come on, sis. You're barely here anyway. Always at that apartment of yours. We actually live here. Because it's my house, I said quietly. Ramon's face darkened. Right. Because grandmother played favourites. Always perfect little Belle, the only one who could do no wrong. I was the only one who visited her every week, who helped with her medications, who actually cared. We all cared, he shouted. You just made it impossible for anyone else to get close, always hovering, always judging. I pulled out my phone and hit record, letting it peek from my pocket. Look, Ramon continued, his voice dropping to a manipulative whisper. This house is too big for just you. We're a family. We need it more. Why can't you understand that? Because it's not yours to take. He stepped closer. We'll see about that. After he stormed off, I played back the recording. His threats were clear, his entitlement evident. Perfect for the file. My phone buzzed with a text from Bonnie. Just watched Cynthia throw out another box of your grandmother's things. Got pictures. I replied, send them to me. Inside, I could hear Cynthia on the phone. No, you don't understand. We practically live here now. That makes it basically ours. Yes, I know her name's on the deed, but we're family. Mum appeared in the doorway. Belle, honey, why are you hiding out here? Come inside. Family dinner. I looked at her, really looked at her, the woman who had always chosen Ramon's drama over my stability, who had watched him take and take, calling it love. You know what, Mum? I'm not hungry. As I walked to my car, I heard Milena ask, why doesn't Aunt Belle like us anymore? Cynthia's response carried across the yard. Because she's selfish, sweetie. But don't worry. Soon, this will be our house anyway. I smiled slightly, thinking of the growing file on Lionel's desk. We'll see about that, I whispered, starting my car. I stood frozen in the doorway, staring at walls that had been seafoam green just 3 days ago when I left for my business trip. Now, they were painted a garish hot pink, and grandmother's china cabinet stood empty, its delicate contents nowhere in sight. Surprise! Cynthia emerged from the kitchen. We decided to brighten things up while you were gone. And don't worry about the china. We packed it away somewhere safe. My phone buzzed. A text from Dad. Family meeting tonight, 7 p.m. Important to be there. Oh, good. You got the message, Cynthia smirked. We have so much to discuss. I spent the next few hours documenting everything they'd changed, my camera clicking quietly as I moved from room to room. The antique mirror in the hallway, gone. Grandmother's handmade quilts, replaced with store-bought blankets. Even the kitchen herbs she dried and hung with such care had been tossed out for looking messy. At 6:55, cars started pulling into the driveway. Mum and Dad, Ramon's friend who happened to be a real estate agent, even my Aunt Linda, who hadn't visited grandmother once during her illness. "Sit down, Belle," Mum patted the couch. "We need to talk about what's best for everyone." I remained standing. "Where's the china?" "Oh, honey," Mom sighed. "That's not important right now. We're here to discuss the future of the house." Ramon cleared his throat. "Look, sis, we've all been talking. This situation isn't working." "Finally, something we agree on," I said. "The thing is," Cynthia jumped in, "this house is perfect for us. The schools are better here, the kids are settled, and let's be honest, you're never here anyway. Because you've taken over every room." "Belle," Dad spoke up, his voice carrying that familiar tone of forced patience. "Your brother has a family. They need stability. You're single, you have your apartment. It just makes more sense." "To what?" I interrupted. "To give them my house." "It's not just your house," Ramon stood up. "Grandmother meant it for all of us. You just manipulated her into—" "Careful," I warned quietly. "The point is," the real estate agent interjected, "Ramon and Cynthia are willing to take over the mortgage. We've drawn up some paperwork." I laughed. Actually laughed. "There is no mortgage. Grandmother owned it outright." "Even better," Cynthia clapped. "You can just sign it over and—" "No." The room went silent. "What do you mean, no?" Mum's voice shook. "This is your family, Belle. Your brother needs—" "My brother needs to learn he can't take whatever he wants." Ramon's face darkened. "You always were emotionally broken, never understood what family means." "Family?" I pulled out my phone, scrolling through photos. "Like when you sold grandmother's jewelry while she was in the hospital? Or when you borrowed her car and crashed it?" "That's different. I was going through a hard time." "You're always going through a hard time, Ramon, and everyone always expects me to fix it." Aunt Linda spoke up. "You're being selfish. Your grandmother would be ashamed." Something snapped inside me. "Really? Should we call Bonnie? Ask her who visited grandmother every Sunday? Who helped her with her medications? Who actually listened to her stories instead of asking for money?" "Now you're just being cruel," Mum whispered. "Cruel?" I walked to the mantel, touching the empty space where grandmother's portrait had hung. "You want to talk about cruel? Look what they've done to her home, to her memories." "We're making it better," Cynthia protested. "This place was stuck in the past." "It was preserved with love," I cut her off. "Something you wouldn't understand." Ramon stepped toward me. "Sign the house over, Belle. One way or another, it's going to be ours." I smiled then, a calm settling over me. "Is that a threat?" "It's reality," he spat. "You really think anyone will side with you? The cold, distant sister who never makes time for family? Who lives alone with her cats?" "I don't have cats, Ramon. I have documentation, photos, witnesses, and a really good lawyer." The colour drained from Cynthia's face. "Now," I continued, "I'm going to my room. When I come down tomorrow, I expect to hear where my grandmother's china is. After that, we can discuss how long you need to find a new place." "You wouldn't dare!" Mum gasped. "We're family!" I paused at the stairs. "Yes, we are, and it's time this family learned about consequences." As I climbed the steps, I heard Ramon's angry voice. "She's bluffing! She won't really—" I pulled out my phone and sent a quick text to Lionel. "Initiate Phase 1. His response came immediately. "Papers ready. They won't know what hit them." From downstairs, I could hear them plotting, strategizing, certain of their victory. They had no idea what was coming. Sometimes, the quietest person in the room is the one you should fear the most. The property inspection is scheduled for tomorrow at 9 a.m. Lionel said, spreading documents across his desk. Given what Bonnie's documented, it should be interesting. I nodded, watching him sort through photographs. They still won't tell me where grandmother's china is. That's theft, he stated flatly. We'll add it to the list. A knock at the office door interrupted us. Bonnie entered, clutching a manila envelope. You need to see these, she said, pulling out more photos. Caught Cynthia throwing furniture into a dumpster yesterday. Antique pieces. And look what the kids did to Margaret's portrait. The images showed Cynthia and Ramon hauling grandmother's Victorian chairs to the curb, laughing as they tossed them in. Another showed the defaced portrait, now propped against the garbage bins. I rescued it, Bonnie added. It's at my house. My phone buzzed, a Facebook notification. Cynthia had tagged me in a post. Dealing with toxic family members is so hard, she'd written. Some people are just mentally unstable. Prayers needed. The comments flooded in. Stay strong. Family should come first. Some people are just selfish. Lionel glanced at my phone. Perfect. Keep screenshots of everything. Their social media campaign will backfire spectacularly. They're trying to paint me as the villain, I said. Let them, he replied. The quieter you stay, the louder they'll get, and the louder they get. The more evidence we have, I finished. Another knock. Lionel's assistant entered with a stack of papers. The property assessor's preliminary report just came in. You'll want to see this. I scanned the document, my eyes widening. Water damage from unreported leaks, structural issues from unauthorized renovations, mold in the walls where they tried to install a new shower without permits. They're destroying the house, I whispered. They're destroying their case, Lionel corrected. Each violation strengthens our position. My phone buzzed again. Mum. Why are there inspectors at the house? Ramon is furious. What are you doing to your family? Before I could respond, another text came through. This one from Milena. Aunt Belle, why is Mommy throwing away all the pretty things? I showed Lionel the message. The kids are innocent in this, I said. Yes, but their parents aren't. Speaking of which, he turned his laptop around, showing me Ramon's browser history. Your brother left his Facebook logged in at the library where I get coffee. Look what he's been researching. The screen showed articles. How to contest a will. Suing siblings over inheritance. Proving mental incompetence in property disputes. They're planning to claim grandmother wasn't competent when she left me the house, I realised. They can try, Lionel smiled. I have her medical records, witness statements, and the video she made explaining her decision. Would you like to see it? What video? He pressed play. Grandmother's face filled the screen, her eyes clear and determined. I'm leaving the cottage to Belle, she said firmly. Ramon will protest, but he's proven time and again he can't be trusted. Belle is the only one who truly loves this place, who understands its value beyond money. And she's stronger than anyone knows. I wiped my eyes as the video ended. She knew this would happen, I said. She knew Ramon, Bonnie corrected. We all did. That's why she made sure everything was legally airtight. My phone lit up with notifications. Cynthia was live streaming from the house, giving a tour of all the improvements they'd made. And this awful wallpaper had to go, she was saying, showing the stripped walls of grandmother's bedroom. The old lady had no taste. Keep streaming, I muttered. Keep documenting your own destruction. Lionel gathered the papers into a file. The eviction notice is ready. We can serve it whenever you say. Not yet, I said, watching Cynthia's stream. Let them dig a little deeper. Belle, Bonnie touched my arm, Margaret would be proud of you, not just for fighting back, but for doing it the right way. My phone buzzed one final time. Ramon had accidentally sent me a message meant for Cynthia. Don't worry, babe. Once we get her declared unfit, the house is ours. No judge will side with a lonely spinster over a family with kids. I showed Lionel the message. Now? He asked. No, I replied, saving the screenshot. Let them think they're winning. The bigger they build themselves up, the harder they'll fall, Bonnie finished. Outside Lionel's office window, I could see the courthouse where this would all end. Soon. But not before they revealed every ugly truth about themselves to the world. Sometimes revenge doesn't need to be loud. Sometimes it just needs to be thorough. The inspectors moved through the house like silent ghosts, taking photos and measurements while Ramon and Cynthia hovered anxiously nearby. I stood in the kitchen, pretending to make coffee while recording everything on my phone. "Mom," one inspector called out, "could you come look at this?" In Grandmother's pantry, black mould crept up the walls like evil fingers. The inspector pointed to water damage spreading across the ceiling. "This is recent," he said, "probably from the unauthorized bathroom installation upstairs. The entire structure could be compromised." "We were improving the house," Cynthia protested from the doorway. "That bathroom needed updating." "Without permits?" The inspector raised an eyebrow. "And who authorized these modifications?" Before Cynthia could answer, the front door burst open. Mom and Dad stormed in, faces red with anger. "What is the meaning of this?" Mum demanded. "Why are you having people inspect your brother's home?" "My home," I corrected quietly. "And it's a standard property assessment." "Property assessment?" Ramon appeared, waving his phone. "More like gathering ammunition. I saw your lawyer's car outside his office yesterday." "You're following me now?" "We're protecting our interests," Cynthia snapped. "If you think we don't know what you're doing? Building a case against us?" The inspector cleared his throat. "Ma'am, we need to check the electrical work next. These modifications aren't up to code." "Get out!" Ramon shouted. "All of you, get out!" "They can't leave," I said. "They have a legal right to be here." Dad stepped forward, using his reasonable voice. "Belle, honey, this has gone far enough. You're tearing this family apart." "No, Dad, the family's doing that all on its own." "I'm calling my lawyer." Cynthia pulled out her phone. "This is harassment." "Actually," I said, "harassment would be more like the social media posts you've been making. The ones calling me mentally unstable." She paled slightly. "Or maybe," I continued, "it's like following me to my lawyer's office, taking photos of my comings and goings." "We have rights," Ramon shouted. "We live here. Without a lease, without paying rent, without permission to modify the property." Mum burst into tears. "Why are you doing this to us? To your own brother?" "Inspector," I called out, ignoring her, "would you like to see what they did to the master bathroom?" As we climbed the stairs, my phone buzzed with a text from Lionel. "Cease and desist letter sent to Cynthia regarding defamation. Eviction notice ready." The inspector let out a low whistle when he saw the bathroom. They'd ripped out Grandmother's original clawfoot tub, leaving holes in the floor and exposed pipes everywhere. "This is..." He shook his head. "This is going to need extensive repairs." "We were going to fix it." Ramon followed us in. "We just needed time." "Like you needed time to return Grandmother's china?" I asked. "Or her jewellery? Or her..." "You bitch!" Cynthia appeared in the doorway. "You entitled, selfish bitch. You think you're better than us just because that old woman played favourites." The inspector raised his eyebrows, recording everything on his tablet. "That old woman was my grandmother," I said calmly. "And this is my house." "Not for long." Ramon grabbed my arm. "We've already talked to a lawyer. We can prove you manipulated her, that you..." "Remove your hand," I said quietly, "or the next inspection will be from the police." He let go, as if burned. "Belle," Mum pleaded from the hallway, "please, they have children. Where will they go?" "They had 6 months to figure that out. Instead, they decided to try taking what isn't theirs. My phone buzzed again. A social media notification. Cynthia was live streaming. And now she's brought strangers into our home, trying to intimidate us, just because she's jealous of our family, of our happiness. The inspector cleared his throat. Mum, are you recording this official inspection? Cynthia's face fell. Because that could be considered interference with a legal process. I smiled slightly. Don't worry, Inspector. Everything's being documented. Everything. This isn't over, Ramon hissed as the inspection team moved to the next room. You're right, I agreed. It's just beginning. Later that evening, as I sat in my apartment reviewing the inspector's preliminary report, my phone lit up with a notification. Ramon had accidentally left his browser open on the family computer. The tab showed an article. How to challenge inheritance on grounds of mental incompetence. I forwarded the screenshot to Leonel, adding, Time for phase 2? His response came quickly. Documents ready. They won't know what hit them. Through my window, I could see the lights on at grandmother's cottage. Music thumped, voices carried across the yard. They were having another party, celebrating their imagined victory. Let them celebrate, I thought. The best revenge isn't served cold. It's served legally, thoroughly, and with impeccable documentation. The process server arrived at exactly 10 a.m., while the remnants of last night's party still littered the front lawn. Ramon answered the door in his bathrobe, coffee mug in hand, while Cynthia peered over his shoulder with curlers in her hair. Legal documents for Ramon and Cynthia, the server announced, holding out a thick envelope. What is this? Ramon's voice cracked as he accepted the papers. I stood by my car across the street, watching as Cynthia snatched the envelope and tore it open. Her face went from confused to pale to bright red in seconds. Eviction notice? She shrieked. 30 days to vacate. Property damage claims. Ramon grabbed the papers, coffee splashing onto his robe. This has to be a joke. Additionally, the server continued professionally, you're being served with a cease and desist regarding defamatory social media posts and... Belle! Cynthia screamed across the yard. Get over here right now! I walked calmly toward them as neighbours began peeking out their windows. You're really doing this? Ramon's voice shook. To your own family? Read page 3, I said quietly, the part about grandmother's missing belongings. Cynthia's face twitched. We didn't steal anything. We were just reorganising into a storage unit across town. I pulled out my phone, showing them the security footage Leonel had obtained. The one you rented under your maiden name? You had no right to. I had every right, just like I have the right to demand you leave my property. Car doors slammed behind us. Mum and Dad rushed up the walkway, clearly summoned by frantic texts. What's happening? Mum demanded. Ramon called us crying. Your daughter, Cynthia thrust the papers at them, is trying to make us homeless. Dad scanned the documents, his face darkening. Belle, this is too far. We can talk about this as a family. We tried talking, I said. For 6 months we tried talking. Now we're doing things legally. I'll countersue, Ramon shouted, for emotional distress, for harassment, for what? A new voice joined in. Bonnie walked up my driveway, carrying a large manila envelope. For documenting how you destroyed Margaret's home, for proving you sold her jewellery, for showing how you tried to steal her house from your sister. This doesn't concern you, Mum snapped. Actually, Bonnie smiled, as a witness to the property damage and theft, it does. Would you like to see my photos? I have quite the collection. Cynthia's face crumpled. You've been spying on us? No, Bonnie replied. I've been protecting Margaret's legacy, just like she asked me to. You can't prove anything, Ramon said, but his voice wavered. The inspection report proves the damage, I said. The storage unit proves the theft. Your social media posts prove the harassment. And grandmother's video proves she was completely competent when she left me the house. What video? Mum whispered. The one she made with her lawyer, where she explicitly states why Ramon couldn't be trusted with the property. Ramon lunged forward suddenly, grabbing my arm. You manipulative little... I wouldn't. Bonnie's voice cut like steel. Assault charges wouldn't help your case. He released me, stepping back. 30 days, I said, rubbing my arm. Return grandmother's belongings, pay for the damages and leave. Or what? Cynthia challenged. Or I press criminal charges for theft and property destruction. Leah now has the paperwork ready. You'd do that? Mum's voice broke. To your own brother? You taught me that family comes first, Mum. But you never taught Ramon that family goes both ways. We'll fight this, Ramon declared. We'll get lawyers, You'll what? I interrupted. Prove that you destroyed the house. Prove that you tried to steal it. Prove that you've been planning this takeover for months. I pulled out my phone, showing them Ramon's browser history. His face went pale. How did you... You really should log out of public computers, brother. Cynthia started crying, mascara running down her face. Where are we supposed to go? That's not my problem, I said, just like it wasn't your problem when you threw out grandmother's memories. Mum stepped toward me, hand raised to slap, but Dad caught her arm. Don't, he said quietly. You'll just make it worse. 30 days, I repeated, turning to leave. Not 1 day more. You'll regret this, Ramon called after me. When you're old and alone, you'll regret choosing a house over family. I stopped and looked back. I didn't choose the house over family, Ramon. You chose greed over sister. As I walked away, I heard Bonnie say, I have more photos if anyone's interested. Margaret always said documentation was the best protection against liars. The sound of Cynthia's wailing followed me to my car, but for the first time in months, I felt at peace. Sometimes the quietest person in the room is the one you should fear most, especially when they have proof of every wrong you've done. The mediation room felt smaller than it was, cramped with tension and unspoken accusations. Ramon and Cynthia sat across the table, their lawyer between them, while Mom and Dad huddled in chairs against the wall. Lionel arranged documents in front of me with surgical precision. Let's begin, the mediator said. We're here to discuss the eviction notice and property damage claims regarding... This is ridiculous, Ramon interrupted. She's my sister. You can't evict family. Mr. Ramon, the mediator's voice hardened. Interruptions won't help your case. Now, Ms. Isabel has provided extensive documentation. Let's review it. Lionel started sliding photos across the table. The destroyed rose garden, the mouldy walls, grandmother's defaced portrait, the security footage of Cynthia moving antiques to storage. These items, Lionel said, are valued at approximately $47,000. That's not including structural damage to the property. Cynthia's lawyer leaned forward. My clients were making improvements. Without permits, Lionel countered. Without permission. And without any professional oversight, leading to significant water damage. The mediator reviewed the inspection report. This is concerning. We were trying to modernize, Cynthia protested. That old lady's taste was... That old lady, I cut in, left very specific instructions about the house. Would you like to see her video statement? Ramon's face went white. There's no need for... Lionel already had his laptop open. Grandmother's face appeared on screen, her voice clear and strong. I'm leaving my home to Belle because she's the only one who truly understands its value. Ramon has proven repeatedly that he can't be trusted with family treasures. The missing jewelry, the pawned silver. Yes, I knew about all of it. Belle will protect this house. She'll honor its memories. Mum started crying. Dad stared at his shoes. Furthermore, the video continued, I'm of sound mind and body, making this decision with full mental capacity. Any attempts to contest this will only prove why I made the right choice. Cynthia's lawyer shifted uncomfortably. Perhaps we could discuss a settlement? No! Ramon slammed his fist on the table. She manipulated grandmother. She turned her against us. Like you turned our parents against me, I asked quietly. All those years of drama, of taking and taking, while they told me to be understanding. That's different. You needed consequences, I finished. And now you're getting them. The mediator cleared his throat. The evidence of property damage and theft is substantial. Ms. Isabel's terms seem quite reasonable. 30 days to vacate, return of all removed items, and payment for damages. We can't afford that, Cynthia wailed. You could start with returning grandmother's china, I suggested, and her jewelry. The jewelry's gone, Ramon mumbled. We sold it, Mum gasped. Dad finally looked up, disappointment etched on his face. Then we'll add its value to the damages, Lionel said, making notes. We have appraisals for everything. This isn't fair, Cynthia stood up, mascara running. We have children. Where are we supposed to go? Perhaps, the mediator said dryly, you should have considered that before destroying someone else's property. Ramon turned to our parents. Mum, Dad, say something. But for the first time in my memory, they stayed silent. Here are your options. Lionel laid out 3 documents. Option 1, accept the eviction, return what you can, and set up a payment plan for damages. Option 2, refuse and face criminal charges for theft and destruction of property. Option 3, try to fight it in court, where we'll present all this evidence, plus the social media harassment, plus... Enough! Ramon's voice cracked. We'll take option 1. Ramon! Cynthia shrieked. Bro, we can't just... We lost, Cynthia. Look at the evidence. Look at what we did. We lost. The mediator nodded. A wise choice. Let's discuss the terms. As Lionel outlined the agreement, I watched my brother. Really, watched him. The entitled anger crumbling into defeat. The realization that, for once, he couldn't charm or manipulate his way out. I never wanted this, I said softly. I just wanted you to respect what grandmother left me. You could have shared, Mum whispered from behind. Like Ramon shared my college fund, my first car, my inheritance from Dad's parents. Dad flinched at that. The papers were signed within the hour. As we left the room, Cynthia turned to me one last time. I hope you're happy destroying your family like this. No, Cynthia. The family was destroyed long ago. I'm just finally standing up to the destroyers. Through the window, I could see grandmother's cottage in the distance. Soon, it would be quiet again. Soon, the roses would bloom again. Sometimes, the biggest victories come not with a bang, but with the quiet scratch of a pen on paper, making things right at last. The moving truck pulled away from the cottage, carrying the last of Ramon and Cynthia's belongings. I stood in the garden, planting new rose bushes where grandmother's had once bloomed, while Bonnie worked beside me. They didn't even say goodbye, Bonnie remarked, patting soil around a tender plant. No, I agreed, but they did leave this. I pulled out a crumpled note found in the kitchen. We're staying at the Sunset Motel off Highway 12. The kids miss their aunt. Manipulation until the end, Bonnie sighed. My phone buzzed. A text from Mum. I found some of Margaret's china in our attic. Ramon must have hidden it there. When can I bring it by? Before I could respond, another message appeared. This one from Milena. Aunt Belle, I'm sorry about the roses. And grandmother's picture. I didn't want to draw on it, but Mum said it would be funny. I showed Bonnie the messages. The truth always surfaces, she said, standing up and brushing dirt from her knees. Speaking of which, she disappeared into her house next door and returned carrying something wrapped in a sheet. Found this behind my water heater this morning. Think you might want it. My hands trembled as I unwrapped grandmother's portrait. Despite the marker scribbles, her eyes still held that familiar warmth, that quiet strength. Nothing a good art restorer can't fix, Bonnie said. The sound of a car door made us turn. Dad stood in the driveway, holding a box. Found these too, he said quietly, setting down grandmother's photo albums. Ramon had them in his storage unit. I paid it off so they wouldn't auction anything. Thanks, Dad. He shifted uncomfortably. Your mother and we enabled him. For years, we enabled him, made excuses, asked you to do the same. Yes, you did. I'm sorry, Belle. We should have been fair, I suggested, taught him consequences, protected me sometimes. He nodded, eyes wet. The garden could use another pair of hands, I said, holding out a trowel. If you want to start making things right. Dad rolled up his sleeves and knelt in the dirt. As we worked, a small voice called from the sidewalk. Aunt Belle? Arthur stood there clutching something in his hands. His mother's car idled at the curb, Cynthia pointedly looking away. I found this in my backpack, he said, holding out grandmother's music box ballerina. The one I broke. I tried to fix it, but I took the poorly glued pieces, feeling their jagged edges. Thank you for bringing it back. Mom says we can't visit anymore. Your mom's angry right now, but someday, when you're older, you can visit if you want to. He nodded solemnly. I liked grandmother's stories about the roses. Me too. Would you like to help plant one before you go? Arthur glanced at the car, then quickly joined us in the garden. Together, we planted the last rose bush, his small hands patting the soil with surprising gentleness. There, I said. Now, you'll always have a rose here. After he left, Dad looked at me. You're better than we were, Belle. You're giving them a chance to make things right, even after everything. I'm giving them a choice, I corrected. Just like grandmother gave Ramon choices, and he made the wrong ones. Inside, the cottage was beginning to feel like itself again. The garish paint had been stripped, revealing grandmother's carefully chosen wallpaper beneath. Her quilts were back on the beds, her herbs hanging in the kitchen. Bonnie helped me hang the portrait above the fireplace, marker stains and all. Why not restore it right away? She asked, because sometimes our scars tell important stories. My phone buzzed one last time. A text from Lionel. Ramon's first restitution payment cleared. Want me to have the roses replanted professionally? No, I replied. Some things you need to rebuild yourself. As the evening light filtered through grandmother's lace curtains, I sat in her favourite chair, the one Cynthia had wanted to throw away. The house felt different now, stronger somehow, like it had weathered a storm and emerged standing taller. Dad was still in the garden, quietly working as the sun set. Mum's china waited to be picked up. Arthur's rose would bloom next spring. Even the portrait, despite its scars, watched over it all with grandmother's knowing smile. I hadn't burned bridges, I'd simply stopped maintaining the ones that led nowhere. And in their place, new connections were growing. Tentative as spring roses, but just as promising. The cottage creaked softly, settling into its foundations. Outside, crickets began their evening song. I closed my eyes, finally at peace in the quiet house that had taught me the most important lesson of all. Sometimes, love means saying no, standing firm, and letting the truth speak for itself.
The selfie hit my phone like a slap to the face. There they were, my ex-husband Malik and his new wife Jessica, grinning in front of my house with their middle fingers raised high. The timestamp showed 3:47 a.m. Paris time, which meant they deliberately waited until the middle of my night to send it. I'm London, and this is how my revenge story begins. What the actual fuck? I muttered, sitting up in my hotel bed. My hands shook as I dialed Marissa's number, not caring that it was barely dawn in Boston. Girl, I was just about to call you, Marissa answered, her voice tight with tension. Have you seen the selfie? Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. Please tell me this is some sick joke. It's worse than that. They're claiming squatters' rights. They changed the locks yesterday. The room spun. I gripped the edge of the mattress, my knuckles white. They can't do that. That house was part of my divorce settlement. I have the paperwork. They're exploiting a loophole. Since you've been in Paris for 3 months. For work, the company sent me here. I know, but they're arguing abandonment. Jessica's already posted on Facebook about making the house a real home again. Marissa's disgust was palpable. They've been planning this. My free hand clenched into a fist. The house wasn't just property, it was the last piece of my parents I had left. The place where Dad taught me to change a tyre, where Mom showed me how to make her secret recipe marinara, where I'd foolishly believed Malik and I would build our future. My phone buzzed. Another message from Malik. Honey, you should see what we're doing to your precious garden. Jessica always said those roses were tacky. I'm coming home, I said to Marissa. Today. London, wait. You need to be strategic about this. If you show up guns blazing, they're destroying my parents' house. And that's exactly what they want, to make you crazy, to force you into making mistakes. Marissa's lawyer voice kicked in. Listen to me, I'm already looking into legal options. Dave's been watching the house. Dave knows about this. My co-worker had been checking on the place while I was away. The thought of him seeing Malik and Jessica there made my cheeks burn. He called me yesterday when he saw them moving stuff in. He tried to stop them, but they had some bogus paperwork. I closed my eyes, remembering the day I'd caught Malik and Jessica together. The way he'd laughed it off, called me paranoid. The months of gaslighting before I finally filed for divorce. Now, here they were, taking the one thing I'd fought hardest to keep. My phone buzzed again. A video this time. Don't watch it, Marissa warned, but I was already clicking play. Jessica's face filled the screen, her perfect makeup intact despite the early hour. Hey, London, just redecorating your bedroom, or should I say our bedroom? The camera panned to show Malik ripping down the vintage wallpaper my mother had hand-picked. Oops, hope you weren't too attached to this ugly stuff. The rage that surged through me was arctic cold. Marissa, I said, my voice steady now, remember when you said I needed to be strategic? Yeah, good. Because I'm going to destroy them, not just legally, not just financially. I'm going to dismantle their entire fucking world. London, but I'm going to do it smart. I'm going to do it so thoroughly they'll never see it coming. I opened my laptop, already pulling up flight options. Can you meet me at Logan Airport tomorrow morning? Of course, but... And call Dave. Tell him to document everything, every scratch, every change, every piece of mail they receive at my address. A plan was forming, cold and clean as ice. They think they can take my house. Fine. Let's see how they like what I do with it. My phone lit up one last time. A text from my sister Eliana. Holy shit, did you see what they did? Want me to go over there and kick their asses? No, I typed back. I've got something better in mind. I booked the first flight home. My hands steady now. Malik always said I was too emotional, too reactive. He thought he knew me so well, but he'd forgotten the most important thing. I'm my father's daughter, and Dad always taught me that revenge, like fine wine, is best served cold. The sun was rising over Paris as I packed my bags, but I barely noticed in my mind I was already home, already moving pieces into place. Malik and Jessica wanted to play house? Fine. I'd show them exactly what happens when you break into someone else's life. Game on. The house looked exactly the same from the outside. Same red door, same crooked mailbox, same cracked stepping stone my father had always meant to fix. But now, Malik's sleek BMW sat in the driveway like a middle finger pointed straight at me. "You sure you want to do this?" Dave asked, his rental car idling at the curb. He'd insisted on picking me up from the airport, claiming he needed to brief me on the situation. But I knew he was really there to keep me from doing something stupid. I need to see what they've done. I stepped out of the car, my legs shaky after the long flight. "You don't have to stay." "Like hell I'm leaving." He killed the engine and followed me up the walk. "But remember what Marissa said about keeping your cool." I rang the doorbell, my doorbell, and waited. Through the frosted glass, I could see someone moving inside. Then Jessica opened the door, wearing one of my old aprons. "Well, well," she smirked. "Look who finally came home from her European vacation. Where's Malik? My husband is at work." She emphasized the word husband like a weapon. "Can I help you with something?" "You can get out of my house." "Your house?" She laughed, high and fake. "Honey, possession is 9/10 of the law, and we possess this place now." I started to push past her, but Dave caught my arm. "London, don't. That's exactly what they want." "Listen to your boyfriend," Jessica taunted. "We wouldn't want to have to call the police again. He's not my—" I stopped, noticing something over her shoulder. Through the open door, I could see into the living room. Where my mother's antique mirror had hung, there was now a giant photo of Malik and Jessica's wedding day. But that wasn't what caught my eye. In the corner of the frame, partially visible, was a document sticking out of Malik's pocket. The header looked official, but something about it seemed off. "Like our new decor?" Jessica asked, following my gaze. "So much better than all that dated junk you had up before." "Where are my parents' things? Storage unit, or maybe the dump? I can't remember." She examined her manicure. "Malik said you wouldn't want any of it anyway, considering how you abandoned them at the end." The words hit like a physical blow. Dave's grip on my arm tightened. "You don't know anything about my parents," I said, my voice deadly quiet. "I know they died disappointed in you." Jessica's smile was venomous. "Malik told me all about how you were too busy with your career to visit them in the hospital, how your sister had to handle everything alone." My phone rang, cutting through the tension. Eliana's name flashed on the screen. "Speaking of sisters," Jessica said, "tell her I loved the family photos she sent. Really helped us understand what to throw away first." I answered the phone, turning away from Jessica's smug face. "Elle, now's not a good time." "London, don't freak out, but I might have done something stupid." "What did you do?" "I might have sent Malik some old family photos. He said he was making a surprise memory book for you to help with the divorce healing process." I closed my eyes. "When was this?" "Like 2 months ago, before Paris." She paused. "Why? What's wrong?" "I'll call you back." I hung up and faced Jessica again. "Tell Malik I want my things, all of them. He has 24 hours. "Or what?" She leaned against the doorframe. "You'll cry about it, run away to Paris again. Or I'll make you both wish you'd never set foot in this house." I turned to leave, then stopped. "Oh, and Jessica, that apron you're wearing, Mom made it the year she got diagnosed. Her hands shook so bad she had to redo the stitching 3 times. I met her eyes. "If anything happens to it, they'll never find your body." Back in Dave's car, I finally let out the breath I'd been holding. Well, that was productive. "You saw something in there," Dave said. "What was it?" I pulled out my phone and zoomed in on the wedding photo I'd managed to snap. "Look at that document in Malik's pocket. The letterhead's wrong for our county courthouse." Dave squinted at the screen. "You think it's forged?" "I think Malik's getting sloppy." I forwarded the photo to Marissa. "And I think Jessica doesn't know everything about her perfect husband's plan." "What are you going to do?" I watched as Jessica closed my red door, disappearing back into my life like she belonged there. "I'm going to find out what's in that document. and then I'm going to burn their whole world down. London. Metaphorically, Dave. Mostly metaphorically. I fastened my seatbelt. Now drive. We need to see Marissa before Malik gets home from work. As we pulled away, I could have sworn I saw my mother's ghost in the upstairs window, shaking her head at what her house had become. Don't worry, Mum, I thought. This isn't over, not by a long shot. Marissa's office smelled like old coffee and legal briefs. She spread documents across her desk while Dave paced by the window. The good news is they don't have a legal leg to stand on, Marissa said. The bad news is they can drag this out for months. I don't have months. I pointed to the wedding photo on her desk. What about that document? Could be anything. Property deed, loan application. Her phone buzzed. Hold on. My contact at the courthouse just texted back. Dave stopped pacing. And? Malik filed something last week, but the clerk says the signature looks weird. Marissa frowned at her phone, like it was traced. My stomach dropped. He forged my signature. Wouldn't be the first time, Dave muttered. Before I could respond, my phone lit up with a text from Jessica. Your ex is home. Says he misses you. Should I be worried? That's it. I stood up. I'm going back there. London, don't... Marissa started, but I was already heading for the door. The sun was setting when I pulled up to the house. This time, I didn't bother with the doorbell. I walked straight to the garden hose, turned it on full blast, and aimed it through the open living room window. Jessica's scream was deeply satisfying. What the hell? Malik appeared in the doorway, his designer shirt soaked. Are you insane? Show me the paperwork, I said, keeping the hose trained on him. The real paperwork, not whatever you forged. I'm calling the police, Jessica shrieked from inside. Go ahead, I said. I'd love to report the forgery. Malik's face changed. You don't know what you're talking about. Don't I? I pulled out my phone, showed him the wedding photo. Funny how that document in your pocket has the wrong letterhead. Almost like it's fake. He stepped toward me, water dripping from his chin. You really want to do this here? In front of all the neighbours? I noticed then that people were gathering on their porches, phones out, recording everything. Perfect. Yes, I said loudly. I really want to discuss how you forged my signature and illegally occupied my house while I was working abroad. Lower your voice, he hissed. Why? Afraid Jessica will hear about your plan to flip the house? Or maybe about the debt collectors looking for you? That hit home. His eyes widened slightly. Who told you? Police! A cruiser pulled up, lights flashing. Everyone stay where you are. Jessica appeared behind Malik, makeup running, phone in hand. She's trespassing and destroying property. The officer approached slowly. Mum, please put down the hose. I complied, but kept my eyes on Malik. Officer, I'd like to report a forgery and illegal occupation. This is my house. I have proof. She abandoned it, Jessica yelled. We have rights. Actually, Marissa's voice cut in. She was walking up the driveway, briefcase in hand. As her attorney, I can show you the legal deed and divorce settlement, along with evidence of recent document forgery. The officer looked between us. This seems like a civil matter. It is, Marissa agreed. But the forgery is criminal, and I'm sure Mr. Bennett here doesn't want that investigated too closely, especially given his other legal issues. Malik's jaw clenched. You're bluffing. Try me. I turned to the officer. I'd like to file a report about the forged documents, and I have witnesses who saw them break in last week. This is ridiculous, Jessica snapped. We're leaving. Malik, come on. But Malik wasn't moving. He was staring at me with a mixture of hatred and something else. Fear. You think you're so clever, he said softly, but you have no idea what's coming. Is that a threat? The officer stepped closer. Sir, I suggest you leave the premises while we sort this out. Jessica grabbed Malik's arm. Baby, let's go. We'll call our lawyer. As they walked to their car, I noticed something fall from Jessica's pocket, a crumpled piece of paper. I waited until they drove away before picking it up. It was a text message, printed out. From someone named Flynn. I know what you did. Both of you. Pay up or everyone finds out. London? Dave had appeared beside me. You okay? I handed him the paper. I think I just found our leverage. Marissa joined us, reading over Dave's shoulder. Blackmail? That's dangerous territory. So is stealing my house. I watched the police car pull away, neighbours still filming. Find out who Flynn is and what they know. And then what? Dave asked. I looked at my childhood home, at the water dripping from the windows, at the roses Jessica had already started tearing out. Then we give them exactly what they deserve. The sun had fully set now, casting long shadows across the lawn. Somewhere in the darkness, Karma was loading her gun, and I was going to help her aim it. Flynn Underwood, Dave announced, dropping a file on the hotel room desk where I'd been camping out. Jessica's ex-boyfriend, and guess what? He works at the same bank where Malik's been hiding money. I looked up from my laptop. Hiding money? Shell accounts, suspicious transfers. Dave spread out bank statements. Malik's been moving cash around for months before the divorce, and Flynn knows all about it. My phone buzzed. Eliana. I ignored it. That's not all, Dave continued. Flynn and Jessica had a nasty breakup right before she met Malik. Something about shared accounts and missing funds. So they're all crooks, I muttered. Perfect. Another buzz. This time a text from Marissa. Need to talk. Found something in your parents' old financial records. Before I could respond, someone knocked. Dave opened the door to reveal Eliana, looking worried. You've been dodging my calls, she said, pushing past him. I'm busy. You're always busy. She sat on my bed. Just like when Mom and Dad... Don't. I turned back to my laptop. I can't deal with that right now. Well, deal with this. I found Dad's old filing cabinet in the garage, the one he kept locked. Malik and Jessica haven't discovered it yet. That got my attention. What's in it? Debt notices, lots of them. Eliana pulled out her phone, showed me photos. Mom and Dad were underwater before they died. The house was mortgaged to the hilt. The room spun slightly. That's impossible. They would have told us. Would they? You were always their golden child, the successful one. They didn't want to disappoint you. My phone rang. Jessica's number. Put it on speaker, Dave said. I answered. What do you want? We need to talk. Jessica's voice was shaky. Without Malik? Why would I? Because Flynn just sent me more texts. He knows about the forgery, about everything. She lowered her voice. Malik's not who you think he is. He's not who I thought he was either. Little late for that revelation. Please, she whispered. I'm scared. Dave shook his head, mouthing, It's a trap. Meet me at Riverside Park, I said. 1 hour, come alone. After hanging up, Eliana stared at me. You're not really going? Of course I am. I grabbed my jacket. But first, I need to make a call. 20 minutes later, I sat across from Hazel Armstrong in her demolition company office. Let me get this straight, she said, studying the property documents. You want to sell your house to my company, for cash. At a discount, I added, as long as you can close quickly. And the current occupants will be gone soon. I smiled. One way or another. Hazel leaned back. Lady, I've been in this business 30 years. Never seen anyone so eager to sell below market value. Let's just say I have my reasons. Does this have anything to do with the couple squatting there? You've done your research, she nodded at her computer. Your water hose showdown is all over social media, quite a performance. Then you understand why I'm motivated to sell. What I understand, Hazel said carefully, is that revenge can get messy. I'm counting on it. My phone buzzed again. A text from an unknown number. Tell Jessica to check her old email. Flynn. I forwarded it to Dave with a message. Track this number. Hazel was still watching me. You sure about this? I thought about my parents drowning in secret debt. About Malik's hidden accounts. About Jessica's mysterious past with Flynn. The house needs to go, I said. Today. Cash deal this size, there's paperwork, inspections. I'll pay rush fees, whatever it takes. She studied me for a long moment. Meet me at my lawyer's office in 2 hours. Bring ID and the deed. As I stood to leave, she added, just remember, once those bulldozers start rolling, there's no going back. Good. I checked the time. 40 minutes until I met Jessica. That's exactly what I'm counting on. Outside, the autumn wind whipped dead leaves across the parking lot. My phone lit up with a message from Dave. Found Flynn. You won't believe where he works now. Before I could read more, another text came through, from Malik. Whatever you're planning, don't. You have no idea what I'm capable of. I smiled, thinking of the demolition contracts in my bag. Neither do you, I whispered to myself. Neither do you. The wind picked up, carrying the scent of rain. A storm was coming, and for the first time since this whole nightmare began, I couldn't wait to watch it break. Jessica was already at the park when I arrived, pacing near the duck pond. She looked terrible, mascara smeared, designer clothes wrinkled. You came alone? I asked, scanning the area. Dave was watching from his car across the street, just in case. Yes. She hugged herself against the cold. Malik thinks I'm at yoga. What's this about, Jessica? Flynn sent me more messages. She pulled out her phone, hands shaking. He has proof that Malik's been embezzling from his firm. That's where the down payment for our condo came from. Your condo. This was new. The one we just bought. In Florida. She laughed bitterly. Malik said it was our fresh start, but he used stolen money. I let that sink in. So, while you're squatting in my house, we're planning to flip it, use the profit to cover Malik's tracks. She wiped her eyes. I didn't know about any of it, not at first. But you know now. Flynn showed me everything, the forged documents, the shell accounts. She looked up. He showed me what really happened with your parents' mortgage too. My blood went cold. What about their mortgage? Malik was their loan officer, remember? Before you two even met. Jessica's voice dropped. He knew they were struggling. He used that information to target you. The world tilted sideways. He what? He saw you at their closing. Said you looked successful, ambitious. She wrapped her arms tighter around herself. He planned everything. Getting close to you, the marriage, all of it. My phone buzzed. Dave, get out of there. Malik just pulled up. Too late. I heard footsteps on the gravel path. Well, isn't this cozy? Malik's voice was ice. Having a nice chat. Jessica spun around. You followed me. Find my iPhone is a wonderful thing, darling. He smiled, but his eyes were dead. Now, what were you ladies discussing? Your fraud scheme, I said flatly. The embezzlement, the way you used my parents. Jessica, he said, still smiling, get in the car. No, she backed away. I'm done lying for you. Get in the car. Or what? I stepped between them. You'll add assault to your criminal record. His hand shot out, grabbing my arm. You have no idea what you're dealing with. Actually, Dave's voice cut in, we do. He emerged from behind a tree, phone recording. And so does the SEC. Malik's grip tightened. You're bluffing. The documents are already filed, I said, twisting free. Your firm knows everything. You bitch! He lunged forward. Several things happened at once. Jessica screamed. Dave tackled Malik, and my phone started ringing, Hazel's number. I answered, watching Dave pin Malik to the ground. Hello? Deeds registered, Hazel said. Property's ours. Want to tell those squatters, or should I? I put the phone on speaker. Tell them yourself, they're right here. Mr. Bennett? Hazel's voice rang out. My crew will be there tomorrow morning. Anything left in the house gets demolished with it. Malik stopped, struggling. What? I sold the house, I said. To a demolition company. Everything you and Jessica stole. It's going to be rubble by noon tomorrow. You can't... Already did. I showed him the contract on my phone. Signed, sealed, delivered. No, Jessica whispered. All our things... Better start moving, I suggested, though I'd worry more about the FBI agents probably waiting at your condo in Florida. Malik went limp under Dave's grip. How did you... Flynn says hello. I crouched down beside him. He's very cooperative when he's offered immunity. London, Jessica stepped forward. I'm so sorry about everything. Save it, I stood up. The police are on their way. I suggest you both start practicing your statements. Sirens wailed in the distance. Dave kept Malik pinned while Jessica sank onto a bench, crying quietly. My phone buzzed one last time. Eliana. Just drove by the house. Moving trucks are already there. Need help watching it burn. No need, I texted back. The wrecking ball will do that for us. Looking down at Malik, at the man who'd orchestrated my parents' financial ruin just to get to me, I felt nothing but cold satisfaction. You know what the funny thing is, I said as police cars pulled up. You could have just asked me out normally, but you had to play games, had to prove you were smarter than everyone. I was, he spat. I am. Really? I held up my phone, showing him the demolition contract. Then why am I the one still standing? The police approached, handcuffs out. As they led Malik and Jessica away, Dave touched my shoulder. You okay? I watched my ex-husband disappear into a squad car, thinking of tomorrow's demolition, of Karma's perfect timing. I will be, I said. I will be. The bulldozers arrived at dawn. I sat in Dave's car across the street, watching Hazel's crew set up their equipment. The morning fog hadn't lifted yet, giving everything a surreal quality. Last chance to change your mind, Dave said softly. Not a chance. I sipped my coffee, noticing movement inside the house. Look who decided to sleep in. Jessica appeared at the window, still in her pajamas. Even from here, I could see her face go pale as she took in the demolition crew. She disappeared, then reappeared at the front door, running outside barefoot. You can't do this, she screamed across the lawn. We still have things in there. Hazel approached her, clipboard in hand. Mom, you were served notice yesterday. This property is scheduled for demolition at 8 a.m. sharp. But if you're still inside at 8:01, you'll be arrested for trespassing. A sleek black car pulled up and Flynn stepped out. He looked different than in the photos I'd seen, sharper, more professional in his bank suit. Jessica, he called out, we need to talk. She spun around. You, this is your fault. Actually, he held up a folder, this is all documented evidence of your fraud. Both of you. The FBI is very interested. They'll never prove... I already told them everything. Flynn's voice was tired. The fake accounts, the money laundering, how you and Malik plan to use this house to cover your tracks. More neighbours were gathering now, phones out, recording everything. Perfect. You promised you wouldn't tell, Jessica's voice cracked. We had a deal. Deals change. Flynn glanced at me. Sometimes karma needs a little push. A police cruiser pulled up. The same officer from before stepped out, looking annoyed. More trouble? Just making sure the property is cleared before demolition, Hazel said. Legal owner's request. Where's Malik? I asked Jessica. Gone. She wrapped her arms around herself. He took everything from our accounts and disappeared last night after making bail. Everything? Flynn raised an eyebrow. Every penny, she laughed hysterically. 6 years I spent helping him steal money and he left me with nothing. The officer stepped forward. Mom, did you just confess to theft? Jessica's eyes widened as she realised what she'd said. More neighbours had their phones out now, live streaming her meltdown. I think, Flynn said quietly, you should call your lawyer. 15 minutes to demolition, Hazel announced. Clear the area. Jessica ran back inside, presumably to grab whatever she could carry. The officer followed, making sure she actually left. Dave touched my arm. You sure about this? Once it's done, I'm sure. I watched as our more demolition trucks arrived. My parents' debt, their struggles. It was all because of Malik's manipulation. This house isn't their legacy anymore. It's just a reminder of his betrayal. London, Eliana's voice cut through the morning air. She was jogging toward us, phone in hand. "You need to see this, now." She showed me her screen. A local news website was already running the story. "Revenge demolition. Woman destroys home to oust squatting ex." "That's not—" I started. "It gets worse." She scrolled down. "They're painting you as the villain. Someone leaked emails, making it look like you planned this all along before Malik's fraud came to light." My stomach dropped. "Who would—" "Me." Eliana met my eyes. "I leaked them." "What?" Dave stepped forward, but I held up my hand. "Why?" "Because you're doing exactly what you always do," she said. "Playing judge and jury, making unilateral decisions about our family's property without even asking me how I felt. That house was mine too." Her voice broke. "I took care of Mom and Dad while you were off building your perfect life. I was there when they died, not you. And now you're just destroying everything without even thinking about what I might want." Before I could respond, a tremendous crash came from the house. Jessica had thrown something through the front window. "Time's up!" Hazel shouted. "Clear out or get arrested." Jessica emerged one last time, mascara streaking her face, carrying a box of what looked like photos. The officer escorted her to the perimeter. "Start it up," Hazel commanded. The bulldozer roared to life. I watched as it approached my childhood home, its massive blade catching the morning sun. "London!" Eliana grabbed my arm. "Please, stop this." But it was too late. The blade connected with the front wall, and the sound of splintering wood filled the air. Jessica screamed. Flynn looked away. And somewhere in the growing crowd of neighbours and news crews, I heard someone whisper, "She really did it. She actually did it." Yes, I thought, watching my past crumble. I really did. The question was, at what cost? The news vans arrived before the dust settled. I watched from Dave's office as my face appeared on every local channel, the headlines growing more sensational by the hour. "Vengeful ex demolishes family home in shocking display of spite," Dave read from his computer. "They're really running with this angle." My phone hadn't stopped buzzing. Work contacts, distant relatives, even old college friends, all wanting to know why I'd gone nuclear. "Ms. Howard," my company's HR director appeared in the doorway. "We need to discuss your situation." "Give us a minute," Dave said, standing protectively. "Now, please." She wasn't asking. I followed her to a conference room where my boss and 2 board members waited. Their expressions told me everything. "The optics are concerning," my boss began. "The optics?" I laughed. "What about the fraud, the embezzlement, my ex-husband's crimes?" "Those investigations are ongoing," one board member said. "But your actions were definitive. We're placing you on administrative leave," HR announced. "Pending review." I stood up. "Fine, review this. I quit." Back in Dave's office, Marissa was waiting with more news. "Jessica's talking to prosecutors," she said, "trading everything she knows about Malik for a lighter sentence." "And Malik? Still missing, but Flynn's evidence is damning. Every account, every transaction. He kept receipts for everything." My phone buzzed again. Eliana. "Ignore it," Dave suggested. "No," I answered. "What now, El?" "Mom's journals," she said, without preamble. "I found them in that box Jessica took, the one with the photos." My throat tightened. "What about them?" "She wrote about you, about how proud she was when you got your promotion, how she didn't want to burden you with their financial troubles because you were finally thriving." "Stop. No, you need to hear this. She knew what you'd do. You'll try to fix everything, sacrifice everything, just like you're doing now." "I'm hanging up. She wrote that your biggest flaw was thinking you had to handle everything alone. Sound familiar?" I ended the call, but her words hung in the air. Dave touched my shoulder. "London." "Don't." I shrugged him off. "I need air." Outside, the autumn wind carried the scent of demolition dust. I walked without direction until I found myself at the pile of rubble that used to be my home. Jessica sat on the curb nearby, still clutching that box of photos. "Come to gloat?" she asked. "Shouldn't you be with your lawyer?" "Probably." She pulled out a photo album. "Want to see something funny? Found this in your mum's stuff." It was a picture of my law school graduation. I was beaming at the camera, young and confident. Behind me, barely visible, stood Malik, watching me with calculated interest. "He was planning it even then," Jessica said. "Saw you as his ticket to success." "Why are you showing me this?" "Because I was you once, ambitious, determined." She smiled bitterly. "Then I met Malik, and he convinced me that breaking rules was the same as breaking barriers. Save the sob story. It's not a story. It's a warning." She stood up, brushing dust from her designer pants. "You won, London. You destroyed everything, but at what cost?" My phone buzzed. A news alert: local woman's revenge demolition goes viral. Social media divided. "Great," I muttered. "You know what's ironic?" Jessica handed me the photo album. "You did exactly what Malik would have done. Burned it all down to prove a point." She walked away, leaving me with the weight of old photos and uncomfortable truths. Another buzz. "Dave, your sister's here at the office. She's crying." I looked at the ruins of my childhood home, at the scattered pieces of my parents' life, of my life. "Tell her I'm coming," I texted back. One last photo fell from the album. Mom and Dad on their wedding day, standing in front of the house. They looked so young, so hopeful. On the back, in Mom's handwriting, "Home is where we learn to forgive." My phone buzzed again. An email from Flynn. "Found Malik. Want to know where?" I stared at the message for a long moment, thinking about karma and consequences, about family and forgiveness. Then I typed back 2 words that would change everything. "Tell me." Because maybe Eliana was right. Maybe Mum was right. Maybe handling things alone wasn't the answer. I took one last look at the rubble, at the life I'd deliberately destroyed, and started walking. There was one more piece of this revenge puzzle to solve, and this time I wouldn't do it alone. The Caribbean sun beat down as I watched Malik being led off his rented yacht in handcuffs. Flynn's intel had been perfect, tracking the money transfers straight to this private marina in the Bahamas. "He really thought he could just sail away," Dave said, standing beside me on the dock. "Malik always did love his dramatic exits." I turned to Flynn, who was conferring with FBI agents nearby. "Thank you," Flynn nodded. "Consider it karma's down payment." My phone buzzed. Eliana had sent a photo of the empty lot where our house once stood. The rubble was cleared now, leaving only bare earth and possibilities. "Ready to head back?" Dave asked. "Almost." I watched as Malik noticed me standing there, his face contorted with rage. "You!" he shouted. "You destroyed everything." "No," I called back. "You did that yourself. I just exposed it." The FBI agents pushed him toward their waiting vehicle. Jessica had already cut a deal, turning over evidence that would keep him in prison for decades. The money was gone, but so was his freedom. "London," he tried one last time, "we could have been great together." "We were never together," I said. "I was just another transaction to you." They drove him away. I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no relief, just emptiness where revenge used to live. "Hey," Dave touched my arm. Eliana texted again. The community board approved her proposal. I smiled, remembering my sister's idea. The empty lot wouldn't stay empty long. She'd designed a community garden dedicated to our parents, a place of growth instead of destruction. "She wants to know if you'll help plant the first roses," Dave said. My phone rang. Marissa. "Jessica's sentencing is tomorrow," she said when I answered. "She's asking to make a statement." "Let her." I watched the waves lap against the dock. "Everyone deserves a chance to tell their truth." "Speaking of truth," Marissa continued. That startup that's been courting you, they're still interested. Said your decisive leadership impressed them, I laughed. Is that what they're calling it? They're calling it exactly what it was, taking down a fraud ring and exposing corporate corruption. The viral demolition was just flair. Dave was watching me carefully. What are you thinking? I'm thinking. I took his hand, surprising us both. I'm thinking it's time to build something new. My phone buzzed one last time, a message from Hazel. Lots cleared, ready whenever you are. I looked at the marina, at the spot where Malik had made his last stand. He'd thought money could buy him freedom, that karma would never catch up. He was wrong. Dave? I squeezed his hand. Take me home. To the empty lot? No, I smiled. To my new apartment, the one with the view of the garden to be. We walked away from the marina, leaving behind the yacht, the handcuffs, the last pieces of my revenge. My phone buzzed with messages from the group chat Eliana had started. Her, Dave, Marissa, Flynn and me. Plans for the garden, jokes about karma, pictures of paint, swatches for my new place. You know what Mom would say about all this? Eliana had written. She'd say sometimes you have to tear everything down to build something better. She was right. The house was gone, but family remained. Trust was broken, but new bonds had formed. Malik had tried to destroy my life, but he'd only succeeded in showing me who really mattered. Ready? Dave asked as we reached the car. I looked at my phone one last time. A real estate listing had just popped up. Prime lot available, perfect for new beginnings. Yeah, I said, deleting the listing without opening it. I'm ready, because sometimes revenge isn't about destroying everything. Sometimes it's about clearing the ground for something new to grow. And this time, I wouldn't be planting those seeds alone. Hey, Dave, I said as we drove away. Want to help me pick out some roses? His smile was all the answer I needed. Behind us, the Caribbean sun sparkled on the water, washing away the last shadows of revenge. Ahead lay bare earth, fresh paint, new possibilities. And somewhere in between was the truth Mom had written all those years ago. Home isn't just where we learn to forgive. It's where we learn to begin again. I was finally ready to start.
The call came during my morning shift at the cafe, right as I was trying to balance 3 cappuccinos on a tray. I almost dropped everything when I saw my father's name on the screen. He never called during work hours, that was our deal. My heart started racing before I even answered. My name is Alara, and until that morning, I thought I had my life pretty well figured out. Junior year of college, decent grades, and a part-time job that kept me in coffee and textbooks. Sure, things weren't perfect, but they were stable. At least that's what I thought. Hello. I tucked the phone between my ear and shoulder, setting down the drinks at table 7. It wasn't my father's voice that responded. Alara, dear. The saccharine tone of my stepmother, Serafina, made my stomach clench. I hope I'm not interrupting anything important. I'm at work, I said, trying to keep my voice neutral. 3 years of practice had taught me how to handle these conversations. Is everything okay with Dad? Oh, your father is fine. She paused, and I could practically see her perfectly manicured nails drumming against our kitchen counter. I'm calling about the monthly support payments. The world tilted slightly. Those payments were my lifeline, covering rent, utilities, and part of my tuition. Dad had promised they'd continue until I graduated, his way of supporting my decision to live off campus. What about them? Well, dear, we've had some unexpected expenses come up. Your father and I have been discussing our finances, and we've decided it's time for you to become more independent. The payments will stop at the end of this month. The cappuccinos on table 7 grew cold as I stood there frozen. Does Dad? Did he agree to this? Of course he did. He's very proud of how responsible you've become. We both think you're ready to handle things on your own. My coworker Jude caught my eye from behind the counter, pointing at the growing line of customers. I held up one finger, trying to process what I was hearing. Can I talk to Dad? He's in meetings all day. Very busy with the new project. Serafina's voice softened with false sympathy. I know this might seem sudden, but you're a big girl now. 21 is plenty old enough to stand on your own 2 feet. I wanted to scream that this wasn't about age. It was about promises. About trust. About the agreement Dad and I had made before I chose my college and mapped out my future. Instead, I swallowed hard and said, "Right? Thanks for letting me know. I'm so glad you understand." Oh, and Alara. Her tone shifted slightly, almost triumphant. "We'd appreciate it if you didn't bother your father about this. He's under enough stress as it is." The line went dead before I could respond. I stared at my phone, noticing my hands were shaking. Earth to Alara. Jude appeared beside me, coffee pot in hand. "You okay? You look like you just saw a ghost." "I'm fine," I said automatically, but my voice cracked on the second word. "Yeah, and I'm the Queen of England." He studied my face. "Take 5 minutes. I'll cover your tables." I retreated to the break room, did some quick math on my phone's calculator, and felt my chest tighten. Even with my cafe wages, I'd be short on rent next month. Tuition payments loomed like storm clouds on the horizon. As I splashed cold water on my face, I caught my reflection in the bathroom mirror. Something in my expression had changed, hardened. Maybe Dad might have agreed to cut me off, but I knew Serafina's fingerprints were all over this decision. The same way they'd been all over every major change in our family for the past 3 years. Fine. If she wanted me to be independent, I'd show her independent. But first, I needed to figure out what was really going on with Dad's finances and why Serafina was so eager to keep me from talking to him about it. I pulled my hair back into a tight ponytail and straightened my apron. I had 4 hours left in my shift to start planning my next move. And for the first time since Serafina entered our lives, I felt something beyond hurt and confusion. I felt angry. I spent that night going through old photos on my laptop, searching for something I couldn't quite name. Maybe closure. Maybe answers. The images flickered across my screen like scenes from someone else's life, Dad and me at my high school graduation, both of us grinning like idiots. His arm around my shoulders, my mortarboard slightly crooked. 3 years felt like 3 decades. My phone buzzed. Myra's name lit up the screen. "Please tell me you're not still obsessing over those photos," she said when I answered. "I'm not obsessing." I clicked through another image, Dad's wedding to Serafina. My smile in that one looked more like a grimace. "I'm investigating." "Same thing. Listen, I talked to my roommate. She's moving out next month to live with her boyfriend, so her room's yours if you want it. Way cheaper than your current place." I paused on a photo from Christmas 2 years ago. Dad had fallen asleep on the couch, and Serafina sat beside him, scrolling through her phone. Something about her expression made me uneasy, like she was plotting rather than relaxing. "Alara? You still there?" "Yeah, sorry." I closed my laptop. "Are you sure about the room?" "I don't want to impose." "Stop it. You're not imposing, you're saving me from having to interview random strangers from Craigslist. Plus, you make the best coffee in town. That's just because I steal beans from work. See? You're already the perfect roommate. Criminal tendencies and all." I laughed, but it felt hollow. Moving in with Mira would solve my immediate housing crisis, but it felt like admitting defeat. Like proving Serafina right about my inability to stand on my own. "I need to think about it," I said finally. "Well, think fast. Term starts in 3 weeks," and Mira stopped mid-sentence. "Oh shit, speaking of term, have you checked your student account lately?" My stomach dropped. "No, why?" "There's some issue with the financial aid office. Everyone's getting emails about verification or something." I scrambled to open my laptop again, this time logging into my student portal. Sure enough, there was a notification, additional documentation required for financial aid processing. "This can't be happening," I muttered, clicking through the requirements. They needed updated bank statements, tax returns, and my heart nearly stopped, my father's financial information. What's wrong? They need Dad's signature on some forms. And his tax returns. I ran a hand through my hair, tugging at the roots. How am I supposed to get those without telling him what's happening? Maybe this is a sign that you should tell him. You don't understand. If I tell him, Serafina will twist it around somehow. Make it seem like I'm being ungrateful or trying to cause problems. I thought about the way she looked at me during that last family dinner. Like I was an inconvenience she couldn't quite figure out how to handle. I need to handle this myself. By doing what, exactly? Before I could answer, another call came through, Dad's number. My finger hovered over the accept button. Mira, I have to go. Dad's calling. Good. Talk to him. I ended the call with Mira and took a deep breath before answering. Hey, Dad. Princess. How's my favorite daughter? The familiar nickname hit like a punch to the gut. I'm your only daughter, Dad. Still my favorite. He chuckled, and for a moment, he sounded like his old self. Listen, Serafina mentioned she talked to you about the finances. Here it was. My chance to ask him directly, to challenge what Serafina had told me. But something in his voice, a weariness I'd never heard before, made me hesitate. Yeah, she did. I kept my voice steady. It's fine, Dad. I understand. That's my girl. Always so independent. He paused. You know I'm proud of you, right? The words felt like ash in my mouth. Thanks, Dad. I have to go, early shift tomorrow. After hanging up, I stared at my reflection in the darkened laptop screen. The girl looking back at me seemed different from the one in those old photos, harder, more determined. I opened my phone and texted Mira, I'll take the room. Then I started making a list. If I was going to figure out what Serafina was really up to, I needed more than just suspicions. I needed proof. And I knew exactly where to start looking. Moving day with Mira should have been my biggest concern, but life had other plans. I was sorting through my old room at Dad's house. He and Serafina were supposed to be at some charity lunch, when I heard voices drifting up from the backyard patio. The market's been good to us, Serafina was saying. We could easily get another 100,000 out of the investment account. I froze, box of college textbooks in my arms. Investment account? Dad had always said he kept everything in his checking and retirement funds. I don't know, honey. Dad's voice sounded strained. That money was meant for what? Alara? She's handling things just fine on her own. You said so yourself. I set the box down silently and crept closer to the window. Through the gaps in the blinds, I could see them sitting at the patio table. Serafina wore one of her designer sundresses, the kind that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Besides, she continued, the contractor needs the deposit by Friday if we want to start the renovation next month. Renovation? I thought about my student loan applications, still sitting incomplete on my laptop. The house is fine as it is, Dad said, but his tone had that familiar weakness to it. The same one he'd had when Serafina convinced him to sell Mom's old piano. Darling, we talked about this. If we're going to host the holiday party for your firm's partners, everything needs to be perfect. She reached across the table, touching his hand. Don't you want to make a good impression? This could mean a partnership for you. My phone buzzed in my pocket, probably Mira wondering where I was, but I couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. You're right, Dad sighed. You're always right about these things. Of course I am. Serafina's laugh tinkled like broken glass. I'll call the contractor today. Oh, and we should look at updating my car while the market's good. The lease is almost up, and I saw the most gorgeous Mercedes yesterday. I backed away from the window, my hands shaking. The investment account. The renovations. The new car. Meanwhile, I was working double shifts and eating ramen to make ends meet. My phone buzzed again. This time I answered. Where are you? Mira asked. Jude and I have been waiting with the truck for 20 minutes. Something came up. My voice sounded strange, even to me. I need to check something first. Check what? Alara, what's going on? I was already moving down the hallway toward Dad's home office. Remember how Dad used to let me handle some of his online banking? Back when Mom was sick. Yeah. I wonder if those login credentials still work. Alara, Myra's voice held a warning. Whatever you're thinking. I'll be there soon. I hung up before she could talk me out of it. Dad's computer hummed to life. My hands hovered over the keyboard as doubt crept in. This wasn't just snooping. This was probably illegal. But then I remembered Serafina's casual mention of another 100,000 while I was drowning in financial aid forms. The old password worked on the third try. Within minutes, I was staring at account statements I'd never seen before. Investment accounts, hidden savings, and, oh my God, I whispered. There it was, a recurring monthly transfer to my old account, the one Dad had set up for my college expenses. The same amount as always, every month like clockwork. The money hadn't stopped at all. It was being redirected. to an account in Serafina's name. Footsteps on the stairs sent me scrambling to close windows and shut down the computer. I barely made it back to my room before I heard them in the hallway. "Oh." Serafina's surprise sounded perfectly rehearsed when she saw me. "We didn't know you were here, dear. Just getting the last of my things." I hefted the box of textbooks, grateful it hid my trembling hands. Dad smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Need any help?" "No thanks." I managed a tight smile. "I've got it under control." And I did. For the first time since this whole mess started, I knew exactly what I was dealing with. The question now was, what was I going to do about it? As I walked past Serafina, she gave me one of her practiced smiles. She had no idea I'd just discovered her secret. No idea what was coming. That would change soon enough. The bank statement felt heavy in my hands as I sat in Myra's living room, surrounded by half-unpacked boxes. 3 months of redirected payments, each one a betrayal in neat, digital numbers. My fingers traced the routing information, memorizing Serafina's account details like a battle plan. "You need to tell your dad," Mira said, perched on the arm of the couch. "This is literally theft. It's not that simple." I folded the paper carefully, tucking it into my laptop case. If I go to him now, Serafina will just spin some story about protecting the money for my future, or whatever garbage she's good at making up. My phone lit up with a text from Jude. "Your stepmother's here. Ordering your usual table's worth of fancy lattes." I sat up straighter. Serafina never came to my side of town unless she wanted something. The cafe was only 2 blocks away. "I have to go," I said, already reaching for my shoes. Mira grabbed my arm. "Wait, what are you planning?" "Nothing. I just need to see something." The walk to the cafe felt like crossing a battlefield. Through the front window, I could see Serafina holding court at my regular table, her designer handbag occupying the chair where I usually sat. Jude caught my eye as I entered, giving me a subtle nod. "Alara," Serafina's voice carried across the cafe. "What a lovely surprise. Join me." Several customers turned to watch as I approached the table. Serafina's smile never wavered, but her fingers tightened around her cup. "I was just telling your charming coworker about our renovation plans," she said as I sat down. "Your father is so excited about the new kitchen." "I bet he is." I kept my voice neutral, watching her face. "Must be expensive." "Oh, you know how these things are." She waved her hand dismissively. "But we're being very careful with our finances." "Speaking of which," she leaned forward, lowering her voice. "I noticed you were in the house yesterday when we came home." My heart skipped, but I forced myself to meet her gaze. "Just getting the last of my things." "Of course." She took a sip of her latte, leaving a perfect lipstick print on the rim. "You know, your father mentioned something interesting this morning. Apparently, his computer showed some unusual login activity yesterday. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Behind the counter, Jude was very deliberately not looking our way. "Really?" I said, proud of how steady my voice sounded. "MMM. Serafina's smile turned sharp at the edges. "We changed all the passwords, of course. Just to be safe. You understand." "Completely." I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor. "Is that all you wanted to tell me?" She reached into her bag and pulled out an envelope. "Actually, I brought you something. A little housewarming gift." Inside was a check for $5,000. "Consider it a fresh start," she said softly. "A chance to prove you really can be independent, without needing to investigate things that don't concern you." The check burned in my hands. $5,000, enough to cover next semester's tuition deposit, with some left over for books. All I had to do was take it and walk away. "That's very generous," I said, carefully placing the check on the table. "But I think I'll stick with my current plan." "And what plan is that?" The warmth had vanished from her voice. "I guess you'll find out." I turned and walked away, my legs shaking but my head high. Behind me, I heard the sharp click of Serafina's heels as she stood. "Your father won't believe you," she called after me. "He never does." I paused at the door, looking back at her perfectly composed face. "We'll see about that." Outside, the afternoon sun felt too bright, too harsh. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Smart girl. But this won't end well for anyone. Think about your father." I took a screenshot of the message before blocking the number. Serafina thought she was warning me off, but she just made a crucial mistake. She'd shown me she was scared. Now I just had to figure out exactly what she was scared of. I found the first letter while helping Jude sort through old mail at the cafe. It was addressed to my father, postmarked 3 months ago, from his company's accounting department. My hands trembled as I slid it into my apron pocket. You know that's a federal offense, right? Jude said, but his eyes were kind. Added to my growing list of crimes. I tied my hair back, preparing for the morning rush. Did you know Serafina's been coming in every day this week? Yeah, always when you're not here. Asking weird questions about your schedule, your friends. He hesitated. Your dad came in yesterday too. My stomach lurched. What? Why didn't you tell me? Because he looked terrible, Alara. Like he hasn't slept in days. He kept asking if you seemed okay, if you needed anything. The morning crowd started filtering in before I could respond. As I worked the espresso machine, my mind raced. Dad never came to this part of town unless he had to. And he definitely never checked up on me through other people. During my break, I opened the letter. Inside was a notice about unauthorized changes to Dad's retirement account beneficiaries. All funds had been redirected to a single beneficiary, Serafina. My phone buzzed a text from Mira. 911. Your stepmom's at our apartment. I nearly dropped the phone. What? Why? Says she's dropping off more of your stuff. But she's just sitting here, asking questions about your classes, your study habits. It's creepy. Don't tell her anything. I'm on my way. Wait, there's something else. She mentioned your mom. I froze halfway through untying my apron. What about her? Something about your mom's old medical bills. Said your dad's still paying them off. That couldn't be right. Mom's insurance had covered everything. I'd helped with the paperwork myself. Get her out of there, I texted back. I don't care how. Just get her to leave. Alara. Jude's voice made me jump. He was holding out a fancy envelope. She left this for you this morning. Said it was important. Inside was an invitation to Dad's firm's holiday party, scheduled for next month. A handwritten note in Serafina's elegant script read, "Families should stick together. Last chance to make the right choice." I need to leave early, I said, crumpling the invitation. Already cleared it with management. Jude grabbed my bag from under the counter. But first, there's something you should see. He pulled up a social media post on his phone, a photo from one of Dad's colleagues. It showed Serafina at some charity event last week, wearing a diamond necklace that looked eerily familiar. Isn't that your mom's? Jude zoomed in on the image. You showed me a picture once, remember? The necklace had been my grandmother's, passed down to Mom. Dad had kept it in his office safe after she died, promising it would be mine someday. My vision blurred. She's not just stealing money. She's erasing everything. What are you going to do? Before I could answer, my phone lit up with a call from Dad. As I stared at his name on the screen, another text from Mira came through. She's going through your room, looking for something specific. The letter about the retirement account felt heavy in my pocket. Whatever Serafina was searching for, she was getting desperate. And desperate people made mistakes. I'm not answering, I said, declining Dad's call. Not yet. Alara. Jude's voice held a warning. I know what I'm doing. I hoped I sounded more confident than I felt. She wants to play family? Fine. Tell her I'll be at the holiday party. And then what? I thought about Mom's necklace, about the redirected payments, about Dad's exhausted face asking strangers if I was okay. Then I show everyone exactly who Serafina really is. I grabbed my bag and headed for the door, starting with what's in that safe. As I left, my phone buzzed one final time. A text from an unknown number. You're just like your mother. She didn't know when to stop either. The threat was clear. But Serafina had made a crucial mistake. She'd mentioned Mom's medical bills, files I knew better than anyone. Now I just had to prove what I'd suspected all along. Those bills she claimed Dad was still paying didn't exist at all. The hospital records were gone. Not just misplaced or misfiled, completely erased from the system. I sat in my old volunteer coordinator's office, staring at the empty search results on her computer screen. I'm sorry, Alara, Susan said, genuine concern in her voice. The records from your Mother's Day should be here, but... She gestured helplessly at the screen. It's like they never existed. My hands clenched in my lap. When was the last system update? 3 months ago. She checked her calendar. Right after that new privacy compliance initiative. The same time Serafina had started redirecting Dad's payments. The same time she'd begun talking about Mom's supposed ongoing medical bills. My phone buzzed, Dad calling again. 4th time today. I silenced it just as Myra's text came through. Police just left our apartment. Someone reported suspicious activity. The fluorescent lights suddenly felt too bright, the office too small. Thanks, Susan. I need to go. Outside, the November wind cut through my jacket. I'd spent my entire weekend searching for proof, bank statements, insurance records, anything to show what Serafina was really doing with Dad's money. But she'd been thorough, erasing evidence faster than I could find it. My phone rang again. Jude this time. She's here, he said without preamble. At the cafe. With your dad. My heart stopped. What? They're asking about you. About whether you've seemed unstable lately. She's showing him something on her phone, texts or emails, I think. Of course. All my desperate searches, my clumsy attempts at investigation. She'd been tracking everything, building her case while I built mine. Don't go back to your apartment, Jude continued. Mira says they took your laptop. They what? My voice cracked. All my screenshots, the bank statements, the letter about the retirement account, everything was on that laptop. Your stepmom suggested it. Said she's worried about your mental health, that you've been obsessing over conspiracy theories about her. I leaned against a nearby wall, suddenly dizzy. What did Dad say? He looked convinced. Alara, I think you need to. The call dropped. My phone screen went black, then lit up with a final message from an unknown number. Check your bank account. With trembling fingers, I pulled up my banking app. My modest savings, my carefully budgeted checking account, both completely empty. A single transaction note appeared on each. Account frozen pending investigation. My vision blurred. Without that money, I couldn't pay for next semester. Couldn't buy groceries. Couldn't even buy a bus ticket home if I wanted to. A new text from Mira. They're saying you hacked your dad's accounts. That you're the one who's been stealing money. Serafina has proof. Of course she did. She'd probably been planning this since the day I discovered those transfers, waiting for me to make exactly these moves. Every attempt I'd made to expose her had only given her more ammunition. My phone rang one final time, Dad again. This time I answered. Princess. His voice was soft, worried. We need to talk about what's been going on. Dad, whatever she told you. I've seen the evidence, sweetheart. The unauthorized account access, the obsessive behavior, the paranoid accusations. He sighed heavily. I know losing your mom was hard, but this isn't the way to handle it. This isn't about Mom. But even as I said it, I realized that's exactly what Serafina wanted him to think, that I was just a grieving daughter. Lashing out at my stepmother, inventing conspiracies to cope with loss. Come home, he said. We'll get you help. There's a great therapist that Serafina knows. I hung up, sliding down the wall until I hit the sidewalk. She'd won. Everything I'd tried to prove had been turned against me, making me look exactly like what she'd claimed, an unstable, jealous kid who couldn't accept her new stepmother. My phone lit up with one final message from Serafina herself. The holiday party is tomorrow night. Come home now, apologize publicly, and this all goes away. Or don't, and see what happens next. Your choice, dear. I stared at the message until the screen went dark, reflecting my own defeated face back at me. She'd taken everything. My money, my credibility, my relationship with Dad. Everything except my next move. The holiday party buzzed with forced laughter and clinking glasses. I stood in the entrance of Dad's renovated living room, wearing Mom's old black dress, watching Serafina hold court near the fireplace. Mom's necklace glittered at her throat. You came. Jude appeared beside me, looking uncomfortable in his borrowed suit. Are you sure about this? I clutched my phone tighter, feeling the weight of the email I'd just received. Did you bring what I asked for? He slipped a USB drive into my hand. Security footage from the cafe. Every conversation she's had there for the past month. Alara. Dad's voice boomed across the room. He hurried over, relief evident on his face. I'm so glad you decided to. Is that my necklace? The words came out sharper than I intended, cutting through the party chatter. The room quieted. Serafina touched the diamonds at her throat, her smile never wavering. Wyatt gave it to me, dear. A birthday present. Really? I pulled out my phone. That's not what the insurance company says. Her smile flickered. Dad looked between us, confusion creasing his forehead. What are you talking about? The necklace was reported stolen 3 months ago. I held up my phone showing the email, along with several other pieces of Mom's jewelry. The claim was filed under your name, Dad. But you didn't file it, did you? Serafina. Dad turned to his wife. What is she talking about? She's obviously confused again. Serafina stepped forward, reaching for Dad's arm. Remember what the therapist said about the therapist you invented? I pulled up another email. The one whose bills you've been charging to Dad's account? I called the office. They've never heard of him. The party guests had gone silent, watching the scene unfold. Serafina's perfectly manicured nails dug into Dad's sleeve. While we're talking about bills, I continued, let's discuss Mom's medical expenses. The ones you told Dad he was still paying off. I turned to Dad. Did you ever actually see those bills? They're handled automatically, he said slowly. Serafina set up the payments. Because there are no bills, Dad. I have proof from the hospital. Everything was paid in full before Mom died. The money's been going somewhere else. Enough. Serafina's voice cracked like a whip. Wyatt, she's clearly having another episode. We should. Should what? I stepped closer. Call the police? Like you did yesterday? Funny thing about that, they're very interested in the fraud complaints I filed this morning. Especially the part about you impersonating Dad to redirect his accounts. Dad pulled away from Serafina, his face ashen. What accounts? Show him, I told Jude. He connected the USB drive to the TV, pulling up security footage from the cafe. There was Serafina, clearly visible, using Dad's phone to access his banking app while he was in the bathroom. You don't understand, Serafina said, but her composure was cracking. I was protecting us, building a future. By stealing my college fund? By having my accounts frozen. The anger I'd been holding back finally broke through. By wearing my dead mother's jewelry while telling Dad I'm crazy? Wyatt, she turned to my father, desperate now. I can explain everything. The money's still there, Just what? Dad's voice was quiet, dangerous. Just stole from my daughter? Just lied about my late wife's medical bills? Just tried to convince me our child was mentally ill. The necklace at Serafina's throat suddenly looked like a noose. She reached for the clasp with trembling fingers. Keep it, I said coldly. The police will want it as evidence anyway. The sound of sirens filtered through the party's stunned silence. Serafina's face went pale. I did everything for us, she whispered, but she wasn't looking at Dad anymore. She was looking at me. You have no idea what it's like to have nothing. To need to protect yourself. You're right, I said. I don't know what that's like. But I know what it's like to lose everything. And now, so will you. The police entered as Serafina sank into a chair, her perfect world crumbling around her. Dad moved to stand beside me, his hand finding mine for the first time in years. The necklace caught the light one last time as they led her away, diamonds sparkling like tears. Spring came early that year. I sat in Dad's garden, watching him struggle with Mom's old rose bushes. 3 months had passed since Serafina's arrest, but some wounds were still fresh. You're doing it wrong, I said, moving to help him with the pruning shears. Mom always cut at an angle, remember? He handed me the tools without argument. We worked in comfortable silence until his phone buzzed. Another email from Serafina's lawyers. They're offering a plea deal, he said, not looking up from the roses. She'll return everything she took, plus interest. In exchange for what? We dropped the additional fraud charges. Let her serve a shorter sentence. He pulled a worn envelope from his pocket. She wrote you a letter. I stared at the envelope, dirt under my fingernails, remembering how Serafina's perfectly manicured hands had once held Mom's necklace. Did you read it? No. But her lawyer mentioned. He hesitated. She grew up in foster care, aged out of the system with nothing. Apparently, she's been running similar schemes for years, always targeting widowers with college-aged kids. The letter felt heavier than paper should. That doesn't make it okay. No, it doesn't. Dad touched one of Mom's roses. but it might help explain some things. My phone chimed an email notification. I'd been getting a lot of those lately, ever since the story broke. Local newspapers loved the drama. Wealthy widow's daughter exposes stepmother's fraud ring. The university had even featured me in their alumni newsletter after I won the emergency scholarship. Jude asked me out. I said suddenly, surprising myself. For coffee. Somewhere that isn't the cafe. Dad smiled, a real smile, like the ones from before. Smart boy. Took him long enough. I haven't said yes yet. But you will. He gestured at the garden. You're your mother's daughter. You never could resist fixing broken things. I looked down at Seraphina's letter, still unopened. Some things can't be fixed, Dad. No, he agreed. But they can be understood. Sometimes that's enough. Later that evening, I sat in my new apartment, a small studio I could afford with my reinstated college fund and cafe wages, and finally opened the letter. Seraphina's elegant handwriting filled the page. Dear Alara, you remind me so much of myself at your age. The determination. The need to protect what's yours. I saw it the moment we met, and it terrified me. I thought I could control you the way I controlled everything else in my life. I was wrong. I won't ask for forgiveness. What I did to you, to your father, to the memory of your mother, it's unforgivable. But I want you to know that the fear never goes away. The fear of losing everything, of returning to nothing. I thought having money would fix it. I was wrong about that too. You're stronger than I ever was. You fought for your family instead of trying to replace it. Keep fighting. Yes. I folded the letter carefully and reached for my phone. Jude's number was still up on the screen, waiting for my response about coffee. Hey, I typed. Tomorrow works. But not at our cafe. I know a better place. The garden center down the street had a small coffee shop. Mom used to take me there when I was little, letting me pick out seeds for our section of the garden. Dad had forgotten about it over the years, but I hadn't. Maybe it was time to plant something new. My phone buzzed again, Mira this time, asking if I was still coming to her graduation party next week. Then another text from Dad, found Mom's old gardening journal. Want to help me restart her butterfly garden? I looked around my small apartment, at the potted plants on every windowsill, at the framed photo of Mom and me in her garden, at the future I was finally building for myself. Yes, I replied to both messages. Some things couldn't be fixed, but others could grow back stronger if you knew how to tend them. Mom had taught me that, long before Seraphina tried to make me forget. I placed the letter in my desk drawer, next to the scholarship certificate and the cafe's security footage. Reminders, not of what I'd lost, but of what I'd fought to keep. Tomorrow, I'd plant roses with Dad. But tonight, I had some seeds of my own to sow.
Lila, don't play with your food, Nathan scolded, his eyes narrowing at our 10-year-old daughter. I tensed, bracing for another evening filled with his criticism. As I opened my mouth to defend Lila, she abruptly pushed her plate aside, the contents spilling onto the pristine tablecloth. I'm sorry, Daddy, she said, her voice trembling. I didn't mean to. Nathan slammed his fist on the table, making us both flinch. How many times have I told you? We don't waste food in this household. My heart raced as his face reddened, the vein on his forehead pulsing. I knew that look all too well, the precursor to his rage. Before I could intervene, Lila's small hand reached out and knocked over Nathan's prized baseball, signed by Babe Ruth himself. It rolled off the table and hit the floor with a sickening thud. Time seemed to freeze as Nathan's eyes widened in disbelief. He turned his glare towards Lila, who shrank in her chair. You little brat! Do you have any idea how much that's worth? As he rose from his seat, I placed a trembling hand on his arm. Nathan, please. It was an accident. He shrugged me off, his attention fixated on our daughter. This is unacceptable behavior, Lila. You need to learn some respect. Lila's lips quivered and tears streamed down her cheeks. I'm sorry, Daddy. I'm really, really sorry. To my horror, Nathan reached for his belt, and I knew what would come next. It was a pattern I'd witnessed countless times, his escalating rage followed by physical punishment under the guise of discipline. But this time, something shifted in Lila's eyes. Her tears stopped, and she straightened her back, her gaze locking with Nathan's. No, Daddy. I won't let you hurt Mommy anymore. My breath caught in my throat as Lila's words hung in the air like a heavy curtain, lifting to reveal the ugly truth I'd been denying for years. Nathan froze, his face contorted in rage and confusion. "What did you say?" Lila turned to me, her expression a mixture of determination and sorrow. "Mommy, I've seen the way he treats you, the yelling, the pushing, the bruises you try to hide. It's not right." My carefully constructed facade crumbled as tears spilled down my cheeks. All the times I'd made excuses, all the lies I'd told myself and others, they unraveled in that single heart-wrenching moment. Nathan's face drained of color as he stared at us, his mouth agape. For once he was speechless, stripped of his control and power. In that surreal silence, I realized that my sweet, brave daughter had given me the strength I'd been lacking all these years. The strength to face the truth, to protect her, and to break free from the cycle of abuse that had become my life. As I wrapped my arms around Lila, holding her close, I knew our lives would never be the same. But for the first time in a long time, I felt a glimmer of hope. A hope for a future free from fear and oppression. A future where love triumphed over violence. The shattered remains of Nathan's prized baseball lay scattered on the floor, a fitting metaphor for the illusion that had just been destroyed. And in that moment, I vowed to never let anyone control or diminish me again. The aftermath of that fateful dinner was like a bomb going off in our household. The silence that followed Lila's revelation was deafening, broken only by the occasional clatter as Nathan paced back and forth, running his hands through his disheveled hair. "How dare you?" he seethed, shooting daggers at Lila with his eyes. "How dare you disrespect me like this in my own home?" Lila flinched, but held her ground. "I'm sorry, Daddy, but I won't let you hurt Mommy anymore." Nathan whirled to face me, his face contorted with rage. "Is this true, Janelle? Have you been filling her head with lies about me?" I swallowed hard, my heart pounding in my chest. This was the moment I dreaded for years, the confrontation that could either set me free or trap me further in his web of control. "No, Nathan," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "Lila's telling the truth. I can't pretend anymore." His eyes narrowed, and he took a step towards me, his fists clenched at his sides. "Pretend? You think this is some kind of game?" Before he could advance further, Lila stepped between us, her small frame trembling but her eyes blazing with determination. "Don't you touch her!" Nathan recoiled as if struck, his expression a mix of disbelief and fury. "How dare you speak to me like that, you ungrateful little brat!" "Don't call her that!" I snapped, surprising even myself with the force of my words. Nathan's head whipped towards me, and for a moment I thought he might strike me, but something in my defiance seemed to give him pause. "This is your doing, Janelle," he hissed. "You've turned my own daughter against me." I shook my head, feeling a strange calm settle over me. "No, Nathan, I've done nothing but endure your rage and abuse for far too long. Lila's just the one brave enough to see the truth." His face reddened, and he opened his mouth to retort, but I held up a hand, cutting him off. "I'm done, Nathan. I'm done living in fear, walking on eggshells around you, making excuses for your behavior. It stops now." A flicker of uncertainty crossed his features, and for the first time I saw a crack in his armor of control. "You can't be serious," he scoffed. But his words lacked their usual conviction. "I've never been more serious in my life," I said, my voice steady and unwavering. "This ends tonight." Nathan's gaze darted between Lila and me, and I could see the realization setting in. The years of manipulation and mind games were unraveling before his very eyes. "You'll regret this," he spat, his words laced with venom. "You won't have a penny to your name. I'll make sure of it." I squared my shoulders, emboldened by a newfound strength I hadn't felt in years. "I don't care about your money, Nathan. All I care about is getting away from you and your abuse." His eyes widened, and for a moment I thought he might strike out in desperation. But Lila's unwavering stance seemed to give him pause, and he simply shook his head in disbelief. "Fine," he growled. "Get out, then. See how far you get without me." With those words, he turned on his heel and stormed out of the room, leaving Lila and me standing amidst the wreckage of our former lives. As I pulled my daughter into a tight embrace, tears of relief and determination streamed down my face. The facade had crumbled, and there was no turning back now. It was time to break free, no matter what it took. In the days following my confrontation with Nathan, the atmosphere in our home was thick with tension. He would often storm out without a word, returning late at night reeking of alcohol. Lila and I tiptoed around him, never knowing when his dormant rage might erupt. It was during this tumultuous time that I reconnected with an old friend, Mariah. We had drifted apart after I married Nathan, his controlling nature slowly isolating me from my support system. But when I finally found the courage to open up to Mariah about the truth of my marriage, she was a pillar of strength. "Janelle, you have to get out of there," she urged, her voice laced with concern over the video call. "What he's doing is abuse, plain and simple." I nodded, blinking back tears. "I know, but it's not that simple. He's threatened to take everything from me if I leave, including Lila." Mariah's eyes hardened with resolve. "Over my dead body. We'll find a way, Janelle. You and Lila deserve so much better than this." Her unwavering support was like a lifeline, giving me the courage to take the first tentative steps towards freedom. With Mariah's help, I began documenting every instance of Nathan's abuse, keeping a meticulous record of his outbursts, threats, and the rare but horrifying physical altercations. I started squirreling away what little money I could, opening a secret bank account in preparation for my eventual escape. Meanwhile, Lila and I began subtly undermining Nathan's control in small ways. We would accidentally leave doors unlocked, misplace his belongings, and question his decisions in front of others. It was a dangerous game, but one that slowly chipped away at his perceived dominance. "What's wrong with you two?" he would rage, his face contorted in fury. "Are you trying to make me look like a fool?" "Of course not, dear," I would reply, feigning innocence. "We're just a bit forgetful sometimes." Lila would nod solemnly, her big eyes guileless. Nathan would fume, his jaw clenched, but he could never quite catch us in an outright act of defiance. As the weeks passed, the tension in our home became a palpable force, like a gathering storm on the horizon. Nathan grew increasingly volatile, his temper igniting at the slightest provocation. It was during one of these outbursts that the final catalyst for our escape plan occurred. "You ungrateful wretches!" Nathan bellowed, slamming his fist on the table hard enough to make the dishes rattle. "After everything I've done for you, this is how you repay me?" Lila flinched, but I held her gaze steady, refusing to cower. "What exactly have you done for us, Nathan?" I asked, my voice deceptively calm. "Aside from making our lives a living hell." His eyes widened in disbelief, and for a moment I thought he might strike me. But Lila's small hand slipped into mine, anchoring me, and I felt a surge of strength. "You think you can intimidate us with your tantrums?" I continued, my voice growing in confidence. "Those days are over. We're not afraid of you anymore." Nathan's face turned an alarming shade of red, and he opened his mouth to unleash another torrent of abuse. But this time, I didn't let him. "Save your breath," I said, rising from the table. "We're leaving, Nathan, tonight." His eyes narrowed, and a cruel sneer twisted his lips. "You'll never make it without me. I'll find you, and when I do." But I didn't let him finish. With Lila's hand in mine, I turned and walked away, leaving him sputtering in impotent rage behind us. As we packed our meager belongings, a sense of determination surged through me. The storm had gathered, and now it was time to weather it, no matter what stood in our way. In the days following our declaration to leave, Nathan's behavior became increasingly erratic and menacing. It was as if he sensed the impending loss of control, and it drove him into a frenzy of desperation. "You think you can just walk away from me?" he snarled one evening, cornering me in the kitchen while Lila was at school. "After everything I've given you?" I stood my ground, refusing to cower. "You've given us nothing but misery, Nathan. We deserve better." His eyes narrowed, and he took a step closer, invading my personal space. "Better? You ungrateful bitch. Without me, you'd be nothing." The stale scent of alcohol on his breath made my stomach churn, but I held firm, my heart pounding in my chest. "That's where you're wrong," I said, my voice steady despite the fear coursing through me. "Without you, we'll finally be free." A muscle twitched in his jaw, and for a moment I thought he might strike me. But then a cruel smile spread across his face, sending a chill down my spine. "Free?" he scoffed. "You'll never be free of me, Janelle. I own you, and I own that little brat of a daughter you've turned against me." My hands clenched into fists at my sides, and I had to bite back the urge to lash out. "You don't own us, Nathan," I ground out, my voice trembling with barely contained fury. "We're not your possessions." His smile twisted into a sneer, and he leaned in closer, his breath hot on my face. We'll see about that. Before I could react, he grabbed my arm in a vice-like grip, his fingers digging into my flesh. I cried out in pain, instinctively trying to pull away, but he held fast. "Let go of me," I demanded, but my words only seemed to fuel his rage. "Or what?" he taunted, his eyes glinting with malice. "You'll run away like a scared little mouse? You're not going anywhere, Janelle, not until I say so." Panic clawed at my chest as I struggled against his iron grip, but it was no use. He was stronger, fueled by years of pent-up anger and a desperate need for control. Just when I thought I couldn't take any more, a small voice pierced the tension. "Daddy, stop! You're hurting her!" We both froze as Lila stepped into the kitchen, her eyes wide with fear and determination. Nathan's grip on my arm loosened slightly, but he didn't release me. "Stay out of this, Lila," he growled. "This is between your mother and me." But Lila didn't back down. "No, Daddy, it's not just about you anymore. We're leaving, and you can't stop us." Nathan's face contorted with rage, and he shoved me aside, turning his attention to our daughter. "You little brat! You think you can talk to me like that?" Before he could take a step towards her, I placed myself between them, my heart pounding with a mixture of fear and resolve. "Don't you dare touch her," I warned, my voice low and unwavering. Nathan's eyes widened in disbelief, and for a moment he seemed taken aback by my defiance. "Or what?" he sneered, but there was a flicker of uncertainty in his gaze. I squared my shoulders, drawing strength from Lila's unwavering presence behind me. "Or you'll regret it," I said, my words carrying a weight and conviction I'd never felt before. "This ends now, Nathan. One way or another, we're walking out of here, and you can't stop us." His eyes narrowed, and he clenched his fists at his sides, his whole body trembling with barely contained fury. For a moment I thought he might strike out in a blind rage. But then something shifted in his expression, a glimmer of realization that his power was slipping through his fingers like sand. With a snarl of impotent rage, he turned and stormed out of the kitchen, leaving Lila and me standing together, our bond stronger than ever. As I pulled my daughter into a fierce embrace, I knew that the tide had turned. Nathan's desperation had pushed us to our limits, and now there was no going back. The time for our escape had come. In the aftermath of Nathan's explosive outburst, Lila and I huddled together, our hearts still racing from the confrontation. It was a harsh reminder that our plan to escape had to move forward, no matter the risks. As I held my daughter close, trying to soothe her trembling, a sudden knock at the door made us both jump. My blood ran cold, fearing it was Nathan, returned to unleash his fury once more. But when I cautiously peered through the peephole, I was greeted by an unexpected sight. Nathan's business partner, Michael, shifting nervously on the doorstep. "Janelle," he said in a hushed voice when I cracked the door open. "I need to talk to you. It's important." I hesitated, glancing back at Lila, who nodded in silent encouragement. With trembling hands, I ushered Michael inside, my mind racing with possibilities. Once the door was closed, Michael didn't waste any time. "Janelle, I know what's been going on," he said, his voice laced with a mix of shame and determination. "The way Nathan treats you, the way he rules through fear and intimidation, it's not right." My heart skipped a beat as I processed his words. Had our struggles been visible to outsiders all along? Michael must have sensed my trepidation, for he pressed on. "I'm not the only one who's seen it, Janelle. There are others at the firm who know the truth about Nathan's behavior, both at home and at work." A flicker of hope ignited within me, even as dread coiled in my stomach. If Nathan's colleagues were aware of his true nature, it could either be our salvation or our downfall. "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Michael's gaze hardened with resolve. "We've been documenting his actions, gathering evidence of his unethical practices and abuse of power. It's only a matter of time before the truth comes out and he's held accountable." I couldn't help but glance at Lila, a silent question in my eyes. She gave a slight nod, and I turned back to Michael, steeling my nerves. "And what does this have to do with us?" I asked, my voice stronger now. Michael's expression softened, a hint of sympathy in his eyes. "Janelle, we know what he's put you through, and we want to help." My breath caught in my throat as the weight of his words settled over me. Help, a lifeline we hadn't dared to hope for. "How?" I asked, my voice trembling with a mix of hope and trepidation. Michael reached into his jacket pocket and produced a small flash drive. This contains evidence of Nathan's misdeeds, both personal and professional, enough to ensure he can never hurt you again. He extended the drive towards me, his gaze unwavering. Take it, Janelle. Use it to protect yourself and your daughter, and know that you have allies, even in the shadows. My hand trembled as I reached out and took the drive, its weight seeming to anchor me in that surreal moment. Allies. A concept so foreign yet so desperately needed. Thank you, I whispered, my voice thick with emotion. I don't know what to say. Michael shook his head, a grim smile tugging at his lips. Don't thank me, just promise me you'll use it to get away from him. For good. I nodded, resolute determination surging through me. I promise. As Michael turned to leave, he paused, his hand on the doorknob. One more thing, Janelle. Be careful. Nathan is a dangerous man, and he'll stop at nothing to maintain his control. His words sent a chill down my spine, but I refused to let fear rule me any longer. We'll be ready, I said, my voice steeled with conviction. Michael gave a solemn nod and slipped out into the night, leaving Lila and me to ponder our newfound allies and the weight of the evidence we now possessed. As I clutched the flash drive in my hand, I knew our escape plan had taken on a new urgency. The storm clouds were gathering, and this time we wouldn't be facing them alone. The weight of Michael's evidence, combined with the knowledge that we had allies working behind the scenes, lent a newfound sense of urgency to our escape plan. Lila and I knew we had to move quickly, before Nathan caught wind of the growing storm swirling around him. In the days that followed, we worked tirelessly, gathering what meager belongings we could carry and stockpiling supplies for our journey. Mariah remained our unwavering support, providing us with a safe haven to flee to once the time was right. Are you sure about this, Janelle? She asked one night, her voice hushed over the video call. Once you leave, there's no going back. I glanced at Lila, who was studiously packing her backpack with the essentials we'd need. Her eyes met mine, shining with a determination far beyond her years. I'm sure, I said, turning back to Mariah with a resolute nod. We can't live like this anymore. It's time to break free, no matter what it takes. Mariah's expression softened, a mixture of pride and concern etching her features. All right, just say the word, and I'll be there to pick you up. With our plans in motion, the tension in our household became almost palpable. Nathan seemed to sense the shift in the air, his eyes narrowing with suspicion whenever he caught Lila and me whispering together. What are you two up to? He would demand, his voice laced with barely contained fury. We would exchange a pointed look, then turn back to him with feigned innocence. Nothing, dear, just talking about school. His jaw would clench and his nostrils would flare, but he could never quite catch us in the act of our preparations. Finally, the night of our escape arrived. Nathan had stormed off after another explosive argument, leaving us a narrow window of opportunity to slip away undetected. Are you ready? I asked Lila, my heart pounding in my chest as we gathered our meager belongings. She nodded, her small face set in a mask of determination that both broke and swelled my heart. Ready, Mom. With trembling hands, I dialed Mariah's number, the burner phone feeling like a lifeline in my grasp. It's time, I whispered when she answered, my voice thick with a mix of fear and exhilaration. I'm on my way, Mariah responded, her voice steady and reassuring. Stay strong, Janelle, help is coming. As we waited for Mariah's arrival, every creak and groan of the old house seemed amplified, setting my nerves on edge. What if Nathan returned early? What if he caught us before we could escape? But then a familiar car pulled up outside, and Lila's small hand slipped into mine, anchoring me in the moment. Let's go, Mom, she said, her voice trembling but her eyes shining with determination. With a deep breath, I shouldered our meager belongings and followed my daughter out into the night, leaving behind the prison of our former life. As we slipped into Mariah's waiting car, I couldn't help but glance back at the house one last time. The curtains in Nathan's study fluttered, and for a fleeting moment I thought I saw his silhouette in the window, watching our escape. A shiver ran down my spine, but I refused to let fear take hold. Not this time. Drive, I said, my voice firm and unwavering. Mariah didn't need to be told twice. With a sharp nod, she peeled away from the curb, whisking us into the night and towards an uncertain future, but one that was ours to shape, free from Nathan's oppressive shadow. As the miles stretched between us and our former prison, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders, replaced by a sense of exhilaration and newfound determination. We were free. And nothing, not even Nathan's wrath, would ever shackle us again. In the weeks following our daring escape, Lila and I found ourselves constantly looking over our shoulders, half expecting Nathan to appear and drag us back into his web of control and abuse. But as the days turned into weeks, and we settled into our new life with Mariah's support, the constant fear gradually gave way to a sense of cautious hope. It was during this transition that the first cracks in Nathan's carefully constructed facade began to show. Whispers of his unethical business practices and abusive behavior started to circulate, fueled by the anonymous leaks of evidence from his former colleagues. At first, the rumors were little more than idle gossip, easily dismissed by Nathan's legal team and PR machine. But as more and more damning evidence came to light, the scrutiny intensified, quickly spiraling into a full-blown media firestorm. "Have you seen the news?" Mariah asked one morning, her voice laced with a mixture of triumph and concern as she handed me a newspaper. My heart skipped a beat as I took in the headlines, emblazoned across the front page: "Local businessmen accused of abuse and corporate misconduct." Accompanying the article was a grainy photo of Nathan, his face twisted in a snarl as he pushed past a crowd of reporters. The caption read, "Moore denies allegations, vows legal retaliation." I felt a surge of conflicting emotions, relief that the truth was finally coming to light, tempered by the lingering fear that Nathan's wrath would inevitably find us. "He's not going to let this go, is he?" I murmured, my fingers tracing the lines of his enraged expression. Mariah shook her head grimly. "Probably not, but we're ready for him, Janelle. He can't hurt you anymore." Her words were a sobering reminder of the allies we had in our corner, the ones who had risked everything to expose Nathan's misdeeds and provide us with the evidence we needed to protect ourselves. As the days wore on, the media frenzy around Nathan's scandals only intensified. Reporters camped outside his office and home, shouting questions and snapping photos, as he tried in vain to maintain his crumbling facade of control. "No comment," he would snarl, pushing his way through the throngs of journalists, his face contorted with fury. But the leaks kept coming, each new revelation more damning than the last. Evidence of financial misdeeds, sexual misconduct allegations, and even whispers of criminal activity. It was as if a floodgate had been opened, and Nathan's carefully curated image was being washed away by the torrent of truth. Through it all, Lila and I watched from the safety of our new home, a strange sense of karmic justice washing over us as we witnessed Nathan's downfall unfold. "He deserves it, doesn't he, Mom?" Lila asked one evening, her eyes glued to the news coverage of yet another damaging expose. I hesitated, torn between the desire for retribution and the lingering fear that Nathan's reach might still extend beyond our grasp. "I don't know, honey," I said finally, pulling her close. "But what I do know is that he can't hurt us anymore. We're safe, and that's all that matters." Lila nodded, her brow furrowed as she considered my words. Then a small smile tugged at the corners of her mouth. "I'm glad he's getting what he deserves," she said, her voice laced with a conviction far beyond her years. "After everything he did to us, it's only fair." As I looked into her eyes, shining with a newfound strength and resilience, I couldn't help but feel a swell of pride. My daughter, once so small and vulnerable in the face of Nathan's rage, had emerged as a fierce warrior, her spirit unbroken by the trials we'd endured. And in that moment, I knew that no matter what the future held, we would face it together, stronger, wiser, and forever free from the shackles of Nathan's oppression. His empire might crumble, his reputation lie in tatters, but we had something far more precious: our freedom, our dignity, and a bond that not even his most vicious attacks could sever. As the news continued to document Nathan's rapid descent into disgrace, a part of me couldn't help but revel in the sweet taste of revenge, not for myself, but for the countless others who had suffered under his tyranny. The monster had been exposed, and now he would reap the consequences of his actions, one devastating blow at a time. As the dust settled on Nathan's spectacular fall from grace, Lila and I found ourselves standing at a crossroads, faced with the daunting task of rebuilding our lives from the ashes of our former existence. "Where do we go from here, Mom?" Lila asked one evening as we sat together, the flickering glow of the TV illuminating her pensive expression. I exhaled slowly, pondering her question. For so long our world had revolved around survival, dodging Nathan's fury, plotting our escape, clinging to the hope of freedom. But now that we had achieved that elusive goal, the path forward seemed simultaneously daunting and exhilarating. "Anywhere we want, honey," I said finally, reaching out to tuck a stray strand of hair behind her ear. "The world is ours now." A small smile tugged at the corners of Lila's mouth, and I saw a glimmer of the carefree child she had once been before the weight of Nathan's oppression had stolen her innocence. "I like the sound of that," she murmured, her eyes sparkling with newfound hope. In the weeks that followed, Lila and I made the difficult decision to leave our temporary sanctuary with Mariah and strike out on our own. As much as we were grateful for her unwavering support, we both felt the need to forge our own path, free from the lingering shadows of our past. With the help of the evidence provided by Nathan's former colleagues, I was able to secure a modest settlement from his rapidly crumbling empire. Not nearly enough to compensate for the years of torment, but a start nonetheless. And so, armed with our meager belongings and a newfound sense of determination, Lila and I set off for a fresh start in a new town, leaving the specter of Nathan's abuse firmly in our rearview mirror. As we settled into our cozy apartment, unpacking the few possessions we had managed to salvage, I couldn't help but marvel at the journey that had brought us to this point. The strength it had taken to break free, the courage to face the unknown, and the resilience to forge ahead in the face of overwhelming adversity. "Are you happy, Mom?" Lila asked one evening as we sat together on our second-hand couch, the scent of takeout pizza wafting through the air. I looked around our modest surroundings, taking in the mismatched furniture and the peeling paint on the walls. To an outsider, it might have seemed like a life of hardship and struggle. But in that moment, all I felt was a profound sense of contentment and gratitude. "Happier than I've been in a very long time," I replied, pulling her into a warm embrace. Lila snuggled against me, a contented sigh escaping her lips. "Me too, Mom. Me too." In the months that followed, Nathan's name faded from the headlines, his misdeeds and scandals replaced by the next sensational story du jour. But for us, his legacy lived on in the scars we bore, both physical and emotional, and the hard-won lessons we had etched into our souls. I would be lying if I said his shadow didn't linger, casting occasional doubts and fears across our newfound peace. But each time those whispers of the past threatened to overwhelm us, we would draw strength from the bond we had forged in the fires of our struggle. We were survivors, warriors, and above all, a family united by an unbreakable love that had carried us through the darkest of storms. And as I watched Lila blossom into a confident, compassionate young woman, her laughter ringing through our little apartment, I knew that our story was one of triumph over adversity, a testament to the indomitable spirit that had guided us to freedom. Nathan's reign of terror was over, his power and influence reduced to ashes. But from those ashes we had risen like a phoenix, our wings spread wide as we soared towards a future of our own making. And in that moment, I knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, we would face them together, unbroken, unstoppable, and forever free.
The crystal wine glass shattered in my hand as the manila envelope hit the mahogany dining table. Blood trickled down my wrist, but I barely felt it. The pain was nothing compared to the humiliation burning through my chest as 20 pairs of eyes fixed on me. I'm Olive, and this was supposed to be just another Blake family Thanksgiving dinner. "What is this?" My voice came out steadier than I expected, though my fingers trembled as I reached for the envelope. "Divorce papers." Emerson's voice was flat, practiced. He'd rehearsed this moment, probably with his mother Eleanor watching approvingly from her throne-like chair at the head of the table. I thought it would be better to do this here, with family present. Better for whom? The question died in my throat as Cora, my sister-in-law, let out a poorly disguised snicker. She'd been waiting for this moment since the day Emerson and I got married. "You're serving me divorce papers at Thanksgiving dinner?" The words tasted like acid.
The turkey and cranberry sauce on my plate suddenly looked obscene. "Well, darling," Eleanor's voice dripped with false sympathy, "we thought it would be easier this way. The family could provide emotional support." Allie, my best friend who'd insisted on coming with me this year, grabbed my hand under the table. Thank God she was here. "Emotional support?" I echoed, watching blood drip onto the pristine white tablecloth. "Like the emotional support you showed when you called my art glorified finger painting last Christmas." "Oh, come now," Cora chimed in, wine sloshing in her glass. "Let's not pretend your little hobby was ever going to amount to anything. Remember that gallery showing where nobody bought a single piece?" The room erupted in cruel laughter. Even the cousins I thought were on my side joined in. I looked at Emerson, searching for any trace of the man who'd once defended my passion for art, who'd helped me set up my studio in the guest house of this very estate. He wouldn't meet my eyes. "I think what everyone's trying to say," Eleanor continued, dabbing her mouth with a napkin, "is that it's time to face reality. You're not cut out for this family, Olive. We need someone more substantial." My hand brushed against my purse, where a folded document had been sitting for months. The deed to this very house, the Blake family estate, transferred to my name in a moment of drunken generosity by Emerson on our 5th anniversary. He'd forgotten about it by morning, but I'd quietly filed the paperwork. "You're right, Eleanor." I stood up slowly, letting the blood drip freely onto her precious tablecloth. "I'm not cut out for this family. I'm better than it." "Excuse me?" Emerson finally looked at me, his face flushing red. "Allie, would you mind driving me to the emergency room? I seem to have cut myself." I turned to the stunned faces around the table. "Oh, and Eleanor? You might want to get the tablecloth cleaned quickly. Bloodstains are such a nightmare to remove, almost as difficult as eviction notices." "Eviction notices?" Eleanor's fork clattered against her plate. "What are you talking about?" I smiled, feeling a strange calm settle over me. "Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Enjoy the turkey. It might be your last meal in this dining room." The silence that followed me out was deafening. As Allie helped me to her car, I heard the chaos erupting behind us. Raised voices, slamming doors, Emerson calling my name. "Holy shit," Allie whispered as we pulled away from the estate. "Are you okay?" I watched the mansion shrink in the side mirror, its windows glowing warm and inviting. A facade, just like everything else about the Blakes. "No," I answered honestly. "But I will be." "What did you mean about eviction notices?" I pulled out the deed with my good hand, careful not to get blood on it. "Remember when Emerson got drunk last year and started talking about how this house should belong to someone who actually appreciates its history?" Allie's eyes widened as she glanced at the document. "No way." "Yes way. He signed over the deed that night. I've been sitting on it, wondering if I should tell him." I looked down at my bleeding hand. "I guess now I know what to do with it." "What are you thinking?" The first genuine smile of the evening spread across my face. "I'm thinking this place would make an excellent art gallery. After all, Eleanor always said this house needed more culture." As we drove toward the hospital, I felt something shift inside me. The humiliation was still there, but it was being replaced by something else, determination. They wanted to break me? Fine. But they'd forgotten one crucial detail. Sometimes the best art comes from broken things. 7 stitches, I announced, holding up my bandaged hand as I walked into Allie's apartment. "The doctor said I'm lucky I didn't sever any tendons." "Lucky isn't exactly the word I'd use for anything that happened today." Allie handed me a glass of wine, in a plastic cup this time. "Your phone's been blowing up, by the way. 23 missed calls from Emerson." I sank into her plush couch, exhausted. Let him sweat. "So, are we going to talk about the nuclear bomb you're sitting on?" Allie curled up in her armchair, tucking her feet under her. "That deed is serious business, Olive." "I know." I took a long sip of wine. "I already called Riley." "The lawyer? When?" "From the hospital. She's coming over first thing tomorrow morning." I pulled out my phone and finally looked at the messages. "Oh, this is Rich. Listen to what Cora just sent. How dare you embarrass our family like this? After everything we've done for you?" Allie snorted. "Everything they've done for you? Like what? Criticize your art? Exclude you from family photos? Make snide comments about your clothes? The memories flooded back unbidden. Remember last summer's garden party? When Eleanor told all her friends I was the cleaning lady because she was embarrassed to introduce me as her daughter-in-law? God, yes. And Emerson just stood there pretending not to hear. He always just stood there. My voice cracked slightly. 5 years of marriage, and he never once truly stood up for me. The doorbell rang, making us both jump. Allie peeked through the peephole and cursed. It's Emerson. Olive! His voice carried through the door. I know you're in there. We need to talk. I shook my head at Allie, who called out, She doesn't want to see you, Emerson. Go home. This is ridiculous. Something thudded against the door, probably his fist. You can't just threaten my family's home. That deed was a mistake, and you know it. I walked to the door, my heart pounding. A mistake? Like serving me divorce papers at Thanksgiving dinner was a mistake? That's different. I was trying to... To what? Humiliate me? Congratulations, mission accomplished. I pressed my bandaged hand against the door. But you know what's funny? While you were all laughing at my failed art career, I was quietly building something else. Something you didn't notice because you were too busy being ashamed of me. What are you talking about? My paintings might not sell, Emerson, but my art restoration business is doing just fine. I've been saving every penny, waiting for the right opportunity. I smiled, though he couldn't see it. Guess what? You just handed it to me. The silence on the other side of the door was deafening. Go home, I said finally. Talk to your lawyer. I'll be talking to mine. His footsteps retreated slowly, and I slumped against the wall. Art restoration business? Allie raised an eyebrow. Since when? Remember Francisco, my old art professor? I pulled out my phone and showed her my business website. He's been mentoring me for the past year. Turns out rich people will pay a fortune to have their family heirlooms restored. I've been working out of his studio. Allie scrolled through the site, her eyes widening. These are incredible. Why didn't you tell anyone? Because they never asked. I took my phone back. They were so convinced I was a failure, they never bothered to look closer. Even Emerson stopped asking about my hobby months ago. My phone buzzed with a text from Riley. Got your message. Reviewed the deed. It's ironclad. Meeting tomorrow at 9 a.m. to discuss options. Allie read the message over my shoulder. What exactly are you planning? I walked to the window, looking out at the city lights. That house has been a symbol of everything I'm not supposed to be. Everything the Blakes said I could never achieve. So I'm going to turn it into exactly what I am. An art gallery? Not just any gallery. I turned back to her, feeling more certain with every word. A restoration studio and gallery, a place where broken things become beautiful again, where the past gets a second chance to shine. They're going to fight you on this, Allie warned. Let them. I held up my bandaged hand. They've already drawn first blood. Now it's my turn. My phone buzzed again. Eleanor this time. You ungrateful little nobody. You have no idea what you're getting into. I showed the message to Allie, who whistled low. You know what this means, right? Yeah. I typed out a quick response. Actually, Eleanor, I do. See you in court. Then I blocked her number, and for the first time since that envelope hit the table, I felt truly free. Francisco's studio smelled like linseed oil and possibility. Morning light streamed through the tall windows, illuminating dust motes that danced around his latest restoration project, a Baroque frame that had seen better centuries. So, he said, setting down his tools, you finally told them to go to hell. Not in those exact words. I traced my fingers along the frame's intricate carvings, but close enough. Good. Francisco pulled up 2 stools. Now, tell me about this gallery idea of yours. I'd spent the morning with Riley, going over legal strategies. Now I needed something different, artistic vision. I pulled out my tablet and showed Francisco the floor plans of the Blake estate. The main hall could be the primary gallery space, I explained, zooming in. Those windows face north, Perfect lighting. And look at these side rooms. Stop. Francisco held up a paint-stained hand. You're thinking too small. What do you mean? You're planning a gallery, yes? But what are you going to fill it with? He gestured around his studio. These restoration projects we do, they're not just about fixing broken art. They're about bringing stories back to life. Understanding dawned. You think I should showcase the restoration process itself? Exactly. His eyes lit up. Imagine, one wing shows the before pieces, damaged, forgotten works. Another shows the restoration in progress. And the main gallery? That's where you display the finished pieces in all their glory. Like a metaphor, I whispered. Breaking something down to build it back stronger. Now you're thinking like an artist. Francisco walked to a cabinet and pulled out a dusty canvas. Remember this? My throat tightened. It was my first attempted restoration. A landscape I'd nearly ruined before Francisco taught me the proper techniques. You were so afraid of making mistakes, he continued. But look at it now. The painting gleamed in the morning light, its colors more vibrant than the original artist had ever achieved. That's what I want, I said suddenly. I want to show people that broken things don't have to stay broken. That sometimes the restoration is more beautiful than the original. Francisco's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and frowned. Speaking of the Blakes, Eleanor's been calling me all morning. What? Why? Trying to convince me to talk you out of this. He chuckled. She offered to commission 3 pieces. What did you tell her? I told her I don't work with people who mock my best student. He squeezed my shoulder. Now, let's talk about your opening exhibition. My phone rang, Emerson's number. I declined the call. He's persistent, Francisco observed. He's desperate. The family lawyer probably told them how solid the deed is. I pulled out my sketchbook. But enough about them. I want to show you some ideas. Francisco stopped me again. Before you do, I have something for you. He disappeared into his storage room and returned with a large, covered canvas. I've been saving this for the right moment. He pulled off the sheet, and I gasped. It was one of my paintings from 2 years ago, a self-portrait I'd abandoned after Cora called it amateurish at a family dinner. You kept it? I restored it, he corrected. Added some touches here and there. Look closely. I stepped forward. The woman in the painting, me, stood in a shaft of light, her face half in shadow. But Francisco had added something, a subtle crown of gold leaf in her hair, barely visible except when the light hit it just right. You always had a queen inside you, he said softly. You just needed the right light to see it. Tears pricked my eyes. This has to be in the opening exhibition. Of course, but not alone. He grabbed a fresh canvas and set it on an easel. I think it's time for a companion piece. The queen claiming her throne, perhaps? My phone buzzed again. A text from Riley. Eleanor's lawyer reached out. They want to negotiate. I showed Francisco the message. He handed me a brush. What do you want to do? He asked. I dipped the brush in deep royal purple. I want to paint. Good answer. He set up his own canvas beside mine. Remember what I taught you about composition? The eye needs somewhere to land. And about color? Sometimes the boldest statement is the quietest shade. And about revenge? I paused, brush hovering over canvas. You never taught me about revenge. Yes, I did. He smiled. Every time we restored a painting that someone had given up on, every time we proved them wrong with beauty instead of anger. I looked at the blank canvas, then at my bandaged hand, then at the text from Riley. Finally, I looked at Francisco. Teach me more, I said. And as the morning light filled the studio, we began to paint my revenge. Not in blacks and reds, but in colors that would make even Eleanor Blake wish she'd seen my worth sooner. The cafe was exactly halfway between my apartment and the Blake estate, neutral territory. Emerson sat at a corner table, his usual crisp appearance slightly rumpled. 3 days of stubble shadowed his jaw, and his tie hung loose around his neck. You look terrible, I said, sliding into the seat across from him. Olive. He straightened up. Thank you for coming. You said it was important. I kept my bandaged hand visible on the table between us. A reminder. The waitress approached, but Emerson waved her away. I need you to stop this madness. Mother is beside herself. The house has been in our family for generations. Interesting. I tilted my head. Is that what you told yourself when you planned to serve me divorce papers at Thanksgiving dinner? Mother would approve of this? He had the grace to look uncomfortable. That was poorly handled. Poorly handled? I laughed, drawing looks from nearby tables. You humiliated me in front of your entire family. They laughed, Emerson. They laughed while I bled. I never meant what? For me to fight back? For me to be anything more than the disappointing artist wife you could never quite bring yourself to defend? He reached across the table for my hand. I pulled back. I have an offer, he said, switching tactics. The family is willing to buy the house from you. Name your price. Of course, everything was always about money with the Blakes. Not interested. Be reasonable, Olive. What are you going to do with a house that size? Turn it into some sort of... He waved his hand dismissively. Art space? Actually, yes. I pulled out my tablet and showed him Francisco's preliminary designs. The main hall will be the gallery. The east wing will house the restoration studio. The west wing will be... Stop! Emerson pinched the bridge of his nose. This is ridiculous. You can't just... Can't what? Succeed? Make something of myself? I leaned forward. Or is it that you can't stand the thought of me turning your precious family estate into something that actually matters? Mother will never allow this. Mother doesn't have a choice. I stood up. Neither do you. He grabbed my wrist. Wait, please. There's something else. I sat back down, curious despite myself. Cora's pregnant, he said quietly. She and her husband were supposed to move into the estate next month. It's tradition. The next generation always raises their children there. The news hit like a physical blow. Cora, who'd made my life hell for 5 years, was going to have everything she'd ever wanted. That's not my problem. Olive, please, if not for me, then for who? The family that never accepted me? The sister-in-law who mocked every piece of art I ever created? I pulled my wrist free. You know what tradition I'm starting? Being the first person in that house who actually creates something instead of just inheriting it. His face hardened. You're making a mistake. No, Emerson. I made a mistake 5 years ago when I married you. I stood again. Tell Cora congratulations. I'm sure she'll raise her child to be just as kind and accepting as the rest of you. This isn't over, he called after me as I walked away. Actually, it is. I turned back one last time. Oh, and you might want to warn your mother. The contractors start next week. I'd hate for all that construction noise to disturb her afternoon tea. Outside, I called Allie. How'd it go? She asked. About as well as expected. I started walking, needing to move. Did you know Cora's pregnant? What? No way. Yeah, apparently I'm destroying some grand family tradition by not letting them raise the next generation of entitled Blakes in that house. So what are you going to do? I stopped at a red light, watching people rush past. I'm going to create something beautiful in that house. Something that lasts. And maybe, years from now, Cora's kid will walk into my gallery and see that there's more to life than tradition and appearances. They're not going to make this easy, Allie warned. Good. I touched my healing hand. The best art never comes easy. My phone buzzed with a text from Francisco. Started working on the crown piece. Come see. I have to go, I told Allie. Time to make some art. Give 'em hell, she said. I smiled, already picturing Eleanor's face when the construction crews arrived. No, I'm going to give them beauty. That'll hurt them more. The light turned green, and I crossed the street, leaving the cafe and Emerson's desperate pleas behind. Ahead of me lay Francisco's studio, and beyond that, a future I was finally ready to paint for myself. The sound of power tools echoed through the Blake estate as workers transformed the space. I stood in what used to be Eleanor's precious formal dining room, now stripped bare except for my easel and canvases. The lighting system will be installed by Friday, the contractor said, checking his tablet. And the gallery rails are ready to go up as soon as we finish prepping the walls. Perfect. I stepped over cables and drop cloths to examine the north wall. And the security system? State of the art. Nobody's getting in here without your say-so. A commotion outside drew our attention. Through the window, I saw Eleanor standing at the front gate, gesturing wildly at the security guard. Speaking of which, I sighed. Excuse me a moment. I walked out to find Eleanor in full battle mode, designer handbag clutched like a weapon. "This is outrageous!" she shrieked. "That rent-a-cop won't let me into my own home." "Not your home anymore," I reminded her. "And his name is Marcus. He's former military and deserves respect." "You!" she sputtered, face reddening. "You're destroying everything. Do you have any idea what you're doing to this family?" "Actually, I do." I gestured to the dumpster filled with her precious Victorian wallpaper. "I'm giving this house a purpose beyond hosting your toxic dinner parties." "How dare you?" "No, Eleanor, how dare you?" I stepped closer. "For 5 years, I tried to be good enough for your family. I smiled through your insults, endured your criticism, watched you turn my husband against me piece by piece. Emerson made his own choices." "Yes, he did. And so did I." I pulled out my phone and showed her Francisco's latest Instagram post. My restoration of a damaged Renaissance Madonna, now gleaming with new life. The post had over 50,000 likes. "What is this?" "This is what I've been doing while you were all laughing at my little hobby. Building a reputation, creating connections, proving that broken things can become masterpieces." A truck pulled up, carrying the custom gallery lighting. Eleanor watched, her perfectly manicured hands trembling. "The opening is in 3 weeks," I continued. "Critics from every major art publication will be here. They're particularly interested in my piece about family betrayal. You know, the one inspired by Thanksgiving? You wouldn't dare. Watch me." I nodded to Marcus, who stepped forward. "Now, unless you'd like to be escorted off the property, I suggest you leave. I have work to do." As Eleanor stormed off, Francisco appeared beside me, carrying a fresh canvas. "Nicely handled," he said. "Ready to get back to work?" Inside, I stood before my centerpiece, a massive triptych that dominated the main wall. The left panel showed a shattered wine glass, drops of blood-red wine frozen in mid-fall. The center panel was still in progress, a chaos of dark colors and sharp edges. The right panel remained blank. "I can't figure out how to end it," I admitted, picking up my brush. "Because you're not at the end yet." Francisco adjusted his glasses. "The story's still unfolding." My phone buzzed. A text from Ali. "OMG, you need to see this." She'd sent a link to Cora's social media post, a long rant about family loyalty and artistic sacrilege, complete with photos of the estate's ongoing transformation. The comments section was unexpectedly divided, with several prominent art world figures defending the renovation. "Look at this one." Francisco pointed to a comment from a famous gallery owner. "Bold vision. Can't wait to see the space." I smiled, adding a streak of gold to the central panel. "Think they'll come to the opening?" "They already RSVP'd, along with half the city's art scene." He squeezed my shoulder. "Your revenge is going viral, my dear." I stepped back, studying my work. The paint glistened, wet and alive, like an open wound healing into something beautiful. It's not just revenge anymore, I realized. It's resurrection. A crash from the foyer interrupted us. We rushed out to find one of Eleanor's old portraits had fallen, its frame cracked. "Should we restore it?" Francisco asked. I picked up the painting, running my fingers along its gilded frame. "No, this one stays broken. Sometimes we need reminders of what we're leaving behind." I propped it against the wall, next to my supplies. A visual contrast between the old world and the new one I was creating. 3 weeks, Francisco mused. "Think you'll be ready?" I dipped my brush in paint, the color of dawn. "I already am. They just don't know it yet." Returning to my triptych, I began to work on the final panel, finally seeing how it should end. Not with destruction or triumph, but with transformation. The moment when broken glass becomes a prism, scattering light in all directions. Behind me, the workers continued their symphony of renewal, and somewhere in the city, the Blakes plotted their next move. But here, in this room filled with possibility, I was already free. Opening night. The transformed Blake estate hummed with energy as hundreds of guests filtered through its renewed spaces. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over exposed brick walls, and the scent of fresh paint mingled with expensive perfume. "Is that the director from the Modern?" Allie whispered, nudging me. "And oh my God, there's that famous art critic from the Times." I smoothed down my black dress, designer, purchased with restoration money. "Focus, Allie. Any sign of the Blakes?" "Not yet, but—" She stopped mid-sentence. "Scratch that. Eleanor just walked in, and she brought reinforcements." Eleanor swept through the front door like an avenging angel, Cora and Emerson flanking her. She wore funeral black, as if mourning her former home. Cora's baby bump was visible under her tight red dress. Deep breath. Francisco appeared at my elbow, champagne in hand. "Remember, this is your night." I watched Eleanor's face as she took in the changes. Gone were her precious antique wallpapers and stuffy portraits. In their place, clean gallery walls displayed my work, a journey of destruction and rebirth told through art. "Ladies and gentlemen," Francisco's voice carried across the crowd, "if I could have your attention, please. It's time for our artist to say a few words." The room quieted. I stepped onto the small platform we'd set up, feeling hundreds of eyes on me. Eleanor's glare could have frozen hell. "Thank you all for coming tonight," I began. "This house has a long history of tradition. For generations, it stood as a symbol of legacy and inheritance. Today, it begins a new chapter." I gestured to the walls around us. "Each piece you see tells a story of transformation, of taking something broken and making it not just whole again, but better. Different. True." The crowd murmured appreciatively. Several critics were taking notes. "And now," I continued, "I'd like to unveil the centerpiece of tonight's exhibition." Two assistants pulled the black cloth from the triptych. Gasps echoed through the room. In the final panel, I'd painted what looked like thousands of shards of broken glass, each one catching and reflecting light differently, creating a kaleidoscope of color and possibility. "I call it Thanksgiving Grace," I said, looking directly at Eleanor. The art critic from the Times stepped forward. "The emotional depth is stunning, the progression from destruction to transcendence. Tell us, what inspired this piece?" Before I could answer, Eleanor's voice cut through the crowd. "I'll tell you what inspired it. Spite. Revenge. This entire spectacle is nothing but a tantrum from a woman who couldn't accept her place in our family." The room went silent. Cameras turned toward the drama unfolding. "You're right, Eleanor," I said calmly. "This is about not accepting my place. Because the place you tried to put me in was too small, too dark, too false. How dare you? No." My voice rang out stronger. "How dare you come here and try to diminish this? Look around. Every person in this room sees the beauty I've created. Every critic, every collector, every artist. They all understand what you never could." "And what's that?" Cora sneered. "That true legacy isn't about preserving the past. It's about transforming it into something meaningful." I gestured to the triptych. Every broken piece in these paintings came from something real. That wine glass from Thanksgiving. Those shattered frames you threw away. Even the tears I shed. They're all here, made beautiful. The Times critic was scribbling frantically. Eleanor's face had gone pale. "You think you've won something here?" she hissed. "You've destroyed our home." "No, Eleanor, I've given it purpose." I picked up a glass of champagne. "To new beginnings." The crowd raised their glasses, effectively dismissing Eleanor's outburst. As conversations resumed, I watched Emerson lead his mother and sister away from the main gallery. "Holy shit," Allie breathed. "That was amazing." Francisco squeezed my shoulder. "Look." A wealthy collector was placing a red dot next to the triptych. Sold, for more money than I'd ever seen in my life. Around the room, other red dots were appearing next to my pieces. "Olive?" A quiet voice behind me. I turned to find Emerson. "The divorce papers are on your lawyer's desk," I said before he could speak. "Signed." "I know, He looked around the transformed space. "I never knew you could do all this." "You never looked." I turned away from him, toward a group of admirers waiting to speak with me. "Goodbye, Emerson." As I moved through my gallery, my space, my creation, I felt lighter with each step. The Blakes had tried to break me, but they'd only succeeded in helping me create something extraordinary. The Times critic caught my eye and raised his glass. Behind him, through the window, I could see Eleanor's car pulling away into the night. Let her go, I thought. The house had a new story now, and this one, finally, was mine to tell. Have you seen this? Allie burst into my studio, waving her tablet. The Times review just dropped. I set down my restoration tools, carefully stepping away from the 18th century landscape I'd been working on. 1 week after the opening, and the buzz hadn't died down. Read it to me, I said, wiping my hands on my apron. In a stunning debut, artist and restoration expert Olive transforms family drama into transcendent art. The converted Blake estate now stands as a testament to rebirth, both architectural and personal. Allie looked up, grinning. It goes on like that for 3 paragraphs. My phone buzzed, Riley calling. Hold that thought. Turn on the news, Riley said without preamble. Channel 7. I grabbed the remote for the small TV I kept in the studio for background noise. The headline made my stomach drop. Prominent family faces financial scandal. Sources reveal that the Blake Investment Group has been under federal investigation for months, the reporter was saying. Eleanor Blake and her son Emerson are accused of mismanaging client funds. Oh my God. Allie's hand flew to her mouth. That's not all, Riley said through the phone. They've been using the estate as collateral for loans. If you hadn't gotten that deed when you did, the implications hit me like a physical blow. They would have lost the house anyway. Exactly. And any art or artifacts inside would have been seized as assets? On screen, footage showed Eleanor being escorted from her office building, head down, ignoring reporters' questions. Emerson was nowhere in sight. Where's Emerson? I asked Riley. Word is he's cooperating with investigators. Turned on his mother to save himself. Of course he had. Emerson had always been good at saving himself. My other line beeped, Cora's number. After a moment's hesitation, I switched calls. What do you want, Cora? Please. Her voice was thick with tears. I need your help. Why would I help you? Because I'm about to lose everything. She broke down, sobbing. The baby. I don't have anywhere to go. Francisco walked in, took one look at my face and mouthed, What's wrong? I held up a finger. Cora, I know I was horrible to you, she cut in. I was jealous. You had real talent, real passion, and I just had family money. Money that turned out to be stolen. I closed my eyes, remembering all the times she'd mocked my art, my dreams, my very existence in her perfect world. The guest house, I said finally. It's small, but it's clean. You can stay there until you figure things out. Silence on the line, then quietly, Why would you do this? Because I'm not you. I looked at my triptych hanging on the studio wall. And because sometimes broken things deserve a chance to be rebuilt. After hanging up, I filled Francisco and Allie in on everything. You're really going to help her? Allie asked incredulously. The guest house is where I used to paint, I said, running my hands over the antique frame I'd been restoring. It's where I learned who I really was, despite everything they did to break me. Maybe Cora needs that too. Francisco nodded approvingly. Speaking of rebuilding, he pulled out a newspaper clipping. The city's Historic Preservation Society wants to hire us. Apparently our work here has impressed them. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Riley. Eleanor's lawyer reached out. She wants to make a deal. No deals, I texted back. The house stays as it is. You know, Allie said, reading over my shoulder, you could probably buy their entire company for pennies now. I shook my head. I don't want their company. I want this. I gestured around the studio at the half-finished restorations and new works in progress. This is real. This matters. Through the window, I watched a car pull up. Cora, with a small suitcase. She looked lost, nothing like the proud woman who'd laughed at my pain just weeks ago. I should go help her get settled, I said. Are you sure about this? Allie asked one more time. I picked up a small painting from my workbench, a simple landscape I'd restored, where damage had left beautiful patterns in the aged varnish. Sometimes the cracks are what make something interesting. Francisco smiled. Go. Be interesting. As I walked out to meet Cora, I passed the spot where that wine glass had shattered on Thanksgiving. Now it was marked by a small brass plaque. Here begins the restoration. Karma had come for the Blakes, but not in the way I'd expected. And somehow, in the midst of their destruction, I'd found a way to create something lasting, something true, something that finally was completely my own. The colors need to be warmer here, Francisco said, pointing to a section of the newly restored painting. See how the light catches? I adjusted my magnifying glass, studying the brush strokes. The restoration studio hummed with activity, 3 apprentices working at their stations, Cora cataloging pieces at her desk by the window. The doorbell chimed. Through the security camera, I saw Eleanor standing at the gate. Want me to send her away? Cora offered, one hand resting on her very pregnant belly. No. I set down my tools. I'll handle this. Eleanor had aged years in just a few months. Her designer clothes were gone, replaced by simple slacks and a sweater. She clutched a familiar-looking canvas. What do you want, Eleanor? She held out the canvas. This was in my mother's attic. I thought, maybe you could restore it. I unwrapped the painting carefully. A wedding portrait. Eleanor and her late husband on their wedding day. The canvas was cracked, the colors dulled by decades of neglect. Why bring it to me? Because you're the best. She swallowed hard. And because I owe you an apology. I studied the painting without responding. I was wrong about you, she continued. About your talent, your vision, everything. I was so focused on preserving what was, I couldn't see what could be. Like your son's illegal activities? She flinched. I enabled him, protected him when I should have. She gestured at the transformed estate. You did what I never could. You made something new. Inside, I could see Cora watching us, her face unreadable. The restoration will take time, I said finally, and it won't be cheap. I understand. I can pay. No, I met her eyes. You'll work for it. We need someone to manage the gallery's administrative side. Cora's going on maternity leave soon. Eleanor stared at me, then at the building behind me, at the brass plaque, at the elegant gallery spaces visible through the windows, at her daughter working inside. You'd trust me? After everything? Trust is earned. I handed her a business card. Be here Monday at 9. We'll start with filing. As she turned to leave, I added, Eleanor, the painting, I'll make it beautiful again, but it won't be exactly the same. I know. She smiled sadly. Maybe that's the point. Back inside, Cora was waiting. You're really hiring her? Everyone deserves a chance to restore what's broken. I set the wedding portrait on my workbench. Even Eleanor. Even Emerson? He made his choices. I picked up my tools again. This is about making new choices. Francisco appeared with fresh coffee. Speaking of choices, the Historic Society called again. They want us to handle the restoration of the old theater downtown. Take it, I said. But first, help me with this. Together, we examined Eleanor's wedding portrait, pointing out areas that needed attention, discussing techniques. Through the window, I could see Eleanor still standing at the gate, looking up at the house she'd lost, and maybe finally seeing it for what it had become. My phone buzzed, a text from Emerson. I'm sorry for everything. I deleted it without responding. Some things weren't meant to be restored. Look at this detail, Francisco said, pointing to a tiny flower in the portrait's background. Almost invisible now, but once we bring it back, it'll change the whole composition, I finished. Exactly. He squeezed my shoulder. Just like you did. The afternoon light streamed through the windows, catching the gold leaf in my triptych, making it shimmer. Below it, new students worked on their own restorations, learning to see beauty in broken things. Cora waddled over with paperwork. The gallery bookings are full through next season, and that critic from the Times wants to do a follow-up piece. Tell him yes, I said, carefully beginning the cleaning process on Eleanor's portrait. But make sure he mentions our restoration school. That's the future. As I worked, I could feel the painting's history under my fingers, decades of joy and pain, pride and loss, all waiting to be transformed, not erased, but renewed, made stronger by its scars, just like me. Ready to begin? Francisco asked, preparing his tools. I looked around my studio, at my students learning their craft, at Cora finding her place, at the space I'd created from the ashes of betrayal, at the legacy I was building, piece by restored piece. Yes, I said, dipping my brush in solvent. I'm ready. And as I began to work, bringing light back to Eleanor's forgotten memories, I realized that this moment, this place, this purpose, was the revenge I'd really wanted all along. Not destruction, but creation. Not endings, but beginnings. Not broken, but beautifully restored.